show you what happened.
Today's story is actually going to tangibly impact you. So, for 5 years, there's been a battle waging at the highest levels of the games industry. It's massive, it's between Apple, it's between Epic, and it's around the principle of fairness. And the big news today is that Apple just lost. But they didn't.
This is a huge fucking W. Massive fucking W. Because basically, Apple and Google have a duopoly over all apps on all smartphones. And Epic was suing them over that, and Epic won. This is huge. I didn't make a video about this or talk about this at all. I forgot why. But I'm actually, like, so happy this happened.
Lose because Epic Games outmaneuvered them or any kind of insane gigabrain play from Tim Sweeney. No, they lost because, in the words of the judge presiding over this decision, Apple leadership, quote, outright lied under oath, and in deciding not to comply with legal injunctions, Tim Cook, quote, chose poorly. It's an ominous thing for a judge to be...
He chose poorly, Jesus Christ.
He's saying to you. This, though, is a dramatic case. It has impacts that will reverberate across the entire games industry, and honestly, far wider than that, meaning it truly will impact everyone who watches this video. Here's how all this started. So, Tim Sweeney is a man on a mission, and it's a mission that's cost him and his company more than $1 billion over the last 5 years. It's fair to say that he's pretty committed. Now,
it stands to make them over 10 billion, or probably more than that.
5 years ago is when he decided that Apple and Google's exclusive storefronts on their mobile platforms were in fact unreasonable monopolies.
Yes.
In his opinion. Essentially, he says
yes, bro, yes! I fucking agree with this so hard. I was so happy to see this.
They don't earn their 30%.
Now, do it to MasterCard and Visa. This is the exact logic they need to apply to MasterCard and Visa. Holy shit.
Fee. Rather, they impose it, and that because of that, they're restricting how developers could make money and what sort of deals that they could actually offer to consumers. So what he decided to do was force their hand. So he started something called Project Liberty, and here's how it worked. Fortnite suddenly got an option where users could buy currency directly from Epic, right? Directly, not through your Apple payment or Google payment thing. That, of course, meant that Apple and Google immediately booted Fortnite because it did break their store policies. And this is exactly what Tim Sweeney actually wanted. He wanted his game to
be... The ironic thing about this, and this is very clever by Fortnite, is that this commercial was made by Apple.
Kicked off, and we pretty much know that because Epic immediately filed lawsuits that they had been preparing.
Very clever.
These were designed to force the stores to change those policies. Now, in the case of Google, it actually went so much better than any of us could have expected. Evidence actually emerged that certain developers like Activision had been paid not to rock the boat, and that they deleted documents and were broadly proven to have acted unfairly.
What a surprise. What a surprise that the duopoly by two massive companies was actually propped up by a bunch of corruption. Who could have ever guessed?
They lost on all counts as determined by a jury.
And what's this here? It's actually much more impactful than this video is saying. I'm an app developer, and prior to this lawsuit, you charge 30% no matter what, even if you are below 1 million in sales. Yeah, no, I understand. This is a massive change. And remember, I was complaining about this for a while, and people were saying, oh, we'll just build your own. Nope. Don't need to now.
The platform was opened up.
Yeah, it's an antitrust market. Exactly.
New stores, and Google have appealed. It was a complete win for Epic, but their fight against Apple is an entirely different story. Things have begun to look quite bad for Epic. You see, the outcome of that initial trial, the original one, was an almost complete defeat for Epic Games. They basically could not prove being the emphasis word there, that any kind of monopoly or unfair action was going on. But there was one exception.
So obvious.
An injunction was placed against Apple, and this was to end anti-steering provisions. You might think, what is anti-steering? Well, it's actually pretty simple. So basically, it meant that Apple could no longer prevent developers from directing users to make purchases outside of the store.
Ooh.
So basically, steering you, the customer, somewhere else.
Yeah.
So as an example, that would be buying V-Bucks in Fortnite through a web client
directly
rather
through
than Apple's purchasing system, which would thus avoid Apple's 30% cut.
Right.
Now, at the time, the judge said that Apple should be entitled to something but that they can't force people to use their in-app purchase systems. Apple then spent 3 years appealing, and, it's
Failed.
Apple. They can afford lawyers, but they really got nowhere on that front. And this
Fuck them. That's what you get.
is when that same judge came back and filed a new injunction against Apple for their behavior in the last 3 years. And this one truly is remarkable, and depending on how things shake out, there could even be
Would
a
this also affect Steam? No, it won't affect Steam because Steam doesn't have a monopoly that they can exercise in the same way that Apple and Google can exercise their monopoly. If Steam was 95% of the entire gaming market, then yes. But the big problem is that, so the issue is not that this is happening. The issue is that it's happening and nobody else has access to the market without using this. So, like, for example, like you have dozens of other launchers that an individual can use that's not like Steam. You also have individual company launchers. You have the Epic's launcher, the Epic Games launcher. You have Good Old Games. So there are so many other instances where Steam is effectively like they don't have a monopoly the same way Apple does. It's just that simple. This is antitrust monopolies. That's the reason why it's bad. It's not even bad because of what they're doing. It's bad because they're doing it and nobody can say no. There's nowhere else to go to do it.
Component.
That's the
Quite
difference.
wild. So, it wasn't just for a lack of compliance with the original order, but for contempt of court, which is usually frowned upon. So much so that they've been referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office to consider criminal contempt proceedings. That would be dramatic. Now,
I like
the
the
judge
sound of
essentially
that.
was not pleased that Apple implemented new costly fees around off-app purchases, where basically they were effectively replacing one anti-competitive process with another.
Yes.
Meaning, of course, devs lose, but also us customers lose.
This
And
is another very big component to it, is that the customers, it is ultimately, like, what should the law do? The law should make it to where customers and the most amount of people have the most fair and equitable ability to do business and to receive products at a reasonable price. That is what consumer protection laws are made to do. The fact is that Apple is actively working against that. They are actively working against that through lobbying. They are actively working against that through getting these different cases, fighting these cases. And they're ultimately trying to make you spend more money, the consumer, so they can get a percentage of that money.
While they were doing all that, they were also misleading the court over what they were doing. Here's a quote. That it thought this court would tolerate such insubordination was a gross miscalculation. As always, the cover-up made it worse.
Man.
For this court, there is no
This is
second
the United States District. Oh my God.
bite of the apple.
Damn.
Yeah, GG, Judge. Quite the zinger. So she laid out then some clear rules. These are practices that Apple are banned from. Number 1, imposing a fee in purchases made outside an app. That means that they have no reason, therefore, to track those purchases.
Wow.
The ones made outside an app. Ban number 2, setting conditions on how devs can direct users outside of an app, including restricting how links work. Basically, you know those design anti-patterns that are just trying to get you, the consumer, to clearly do something by, making a link look weird or a misleading design, that sort of thing. 3rd, banning certain types of app from directing users to outside purchases. And finally, using, quote, emotive language to persuade consumers to remain in the in-store purchase system. Basically scaring people who don't know better and, well...
Something like where it comes up with like a red warning box and it says, warning, you might be leaving this store and your computer could be vulnerable. So they can't go and say that.
Actually seen Apple do similar things, saying you can go and make a purchase.
They did that? Of course they did.
Not using the App Store, but, the App Store is very secure and very safe, which, to an average person who's not tech savvy, could basically look like it's Apple saying, hey, you could get scammed if you don't click this link. P.S. This link gets us lots of money too.
Yes.
And of course the reason why these things are banned is, well, because Apple had been doing all of these things. That's what's led to this whole case. Now in response, they have now began complying and appealing. It'll be interesting to see how malicious...
See, this is, you can just do things. These companies have no power. The government has all the power. And if enough people get together, we can just make the companies do what we want. That's the truth. And if they don't do it, we put them in jail. That's it. It's literally it. And you support people to do that, and that's it. Never ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. Well, they're going to need forgiveness now. Go chat, we the people. Yeah, there's no reason for the citizens to put up with this. The EU has already. The EU is way ahead of us on this kind of stuff. And I think that they definitely are much more tech savvy and they have better consumer protections than the US does. And we need to catch up to the EU.
Their compliance is, I imagine it will be as malicious as is humanly possible without getting in even more trouble. But all of this is happening while the rest of the industry is licking its lips. Some developers already had updates to go in this. Spotify were a major one. They framed this as a huge consumer win, which in fairness I would say it absolutely is. Now we can do insane things like manage our subscriptions in an app. We can use different payment options and we can see
Think about how much money Apple's losing with this. Probably billions of dollars.
You can now buy Kindle books in the Kindle app. Patreon memberships are no longer marked up on iOS to counteract the store tax and lots of things. But of course, let's bring it back to Tim Sweeney and Epic Games. So, the Epic Games Store mobile version already existed as of last year, but now they are really ramping things up. Within a week of the ruling, Epic announced their web store fee would drop to 0% for your first $1 million in revenue, with that starting this June. That's obviously
what a
awesome
surprise.
if you're a dev. Plus, much
it's
like
crazy if you're a
with the
dev.
Epic Online Services stuff, what they've done with the store is they've built a solution that people can use regardless of platform. So, be it Google, be it Apple, anything. But more than that, it doesn't need to be the literal Epic Games Store. That's because web shops can basically run
the Trailer Park Boys?
Their infrastructure, and that will let any developer go outside Apple's payment system with no fuss. Yes, Tim Sweeney's definitely taken this one personal, and you know what? I'm here for the drama. Anyway,
well, he should. And also, like, I'm glad, like, I mean, Epic has done things that I've, like, disagreed with in the past. Like, especially, like, the way that they incentivize their launcher. And I even, by the way, just so you guys know, I was in the trenches. I met a guy at an industry function that worked at Epic, and I complained to him about every problem that you guys have with the Epic Game Store. I brought it right to him. And I said, here's my phone number. You want to text me? I can help you fix this. Listen, this is not good. Nobody likes this. It's annoying. Gamers hate this shit. And so that was it. I just want to let you know that I put the word in. I did my best.
Is great for devs, but players are also being incentivized here, where you're going to get 5% reward points through purchases on those shops and the Epic Games Store, but that's boosted to 20% until the end of August. So that essentially is the big clap back against Apple. But there is the other thing, the Fortnite. So Tim Sweeney has proposed that Fortnite can return to app stores within weeks, like super quick, provided Apple allows them to do so. He also said he'll drop all litigation as part of a peace plan, provided Apple roll out this
Bro, he's actually putting... Oh my god. He really playing some bullshit, huh? Yeah, he just putting it down.
Policy worldwide. And instead, as of the time of writing and recording this video, Apple have, went and blocked the Fortnite submission. Now, of course, all of this legal maneuvering so far is only in the US. The current policy implementation on Apple's side only applies in that region right now. Fortunately, though, for those of us benefiting from EU rules, we've already had some things for months already. And
see, this is the thing, right? Is EU is so far ahead of us with this.
Can't stop it. An absolute bomb was dropped in the industry in March of this year when both Google and Apple were found to be in breach of the Digital Markets Act by the EU Commission.
Oh, really? How interesting.
And this is pretty damn big stuff. They can absolutely sting these companies. So with Google, it was for anti-steering practices, and Apple was for blocking third parties from interfacing with their systems.
That's right.
This follows last August's, told you we'd come back to that, ruling that Apple had to open their platform up to alternative stores, and another breach from Apple in April of this year, also on steering. Now, in that last case, they also faced a cool little €500 million fine.
Just a 500 million, just to let you know, like, yo, by the way, you know, like, we know what you're doing, right? It's not a lot, but, you know,
what was absolutely flagrant breaches of the law. Apple are obviously appealing because that's what you do when you're a company, but there's a clear thing, there's a clear trend. The tide is absolutely shifting. Now, it's not going to happen in all regions, but we are seeing...
The reason why the tide is shifting is because more and more people are getting old enough and inside of the voting base who can understand how this unfair monopoly exists, and they're supporting candidates and policies that are tech savvy. So the big problem that we have right now is that, especially in government, like, you have two problems. Number one, you have politicians that are bought and paid for, which is the real problem. That's the main big problem. But the second problem that we have is that you have a tremendous amount of people that work in government that don't really have a functional day-to-day understanding with how technology works, because they don't use it the same way that we do, because they're like 75 years old. So they didn't grow up with it the same way that I grew up with it, or you grew up with it, or anything like that. And so as those people retire and leave the government and new people come in and replace them, you can see these companies easily having these rules being put on them much faster. And every single year, the tide turns, and it will begin turning faster and faster and faster. Now it's millennials? Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad this is happening. I've been waiting on this for a long time.
Regulation over major platforms to protect consumer interests from companies who otherwise would control them. So between that and, I guess, a billionaire slap fight led by Tim Sweeney, well, look, we should take these wins when we can get them. Not to bring up an old drama, and it is a bit of a different story, but yeah. I suppose a little bit like how Hulk Hogan versus Gawker was, in fact, Peter.
Bro, Peter Thiel doing that? Ultimate gamer move. Absolutely fucking based. I remember whenever he did that shit and he shut down that entire fucking website. Yeah, that was so good. So basically, Peter Thiel was like, he was like made PayPal, and, you know, he's like a well-known, like, you know, super rich billionaire guy, right? And so he got the fact that he was gay exposed by Gawker, but he couldn't do anything about it. Oh, he's in Palantir now? I didn't know that. But anyway, but yeah, he was in PayPal as well. And so Hulk Hogan, though, did have a case where they leaked a sex tape, I think, of Hulk Hogan, and Peter Thiel bankrolled the entire fucking lawsuit and killed Gawker. I remember when that happened, bro, like, I was so happy.
Gawker. You know, this is all kind of billionaire slap fights. Now, the thing with Tim Sweeney, right? He does have good principles. There are good principles that he talks about, right? And yes, it's good he's trying to hold Apple to those. But that does not make Tim Sweeney automatically on your side. Sometimes it just so happens that we're aiming at the same target. Now, he will end up benefiting from this massively and in a financial way. And of course, that's because his company is the one building the wraparound solutions that power these out-of-app purchases. And that's really big. And that means that we can appreciate the consumer good that this does. We absolutely can. And the work that the regulators are doing to break down these walled gardens. And in an ideal world, right, once the walled garden is so big and so ubiquitous, you might have to, you know, restrict the freedom of Apple to go and run a monopoly, because not only will it be good for consumers, it will also be good for competition. But
yes, exactly. And it's most importantly good for everybody. The only people that it's good for now is Apple. That's an Apple platform that's too large. Yeah, and absolutely.
I also do think, you know, Standard Oil gets broken up. Who's left with the money to gobble up all the assets? Oh, pretty much the same people. So there's always that thing then where you can have these good pro-consumer regulations, but it's the incumbents with the resources who are immediately able to get around them or exploit the new opportunity. And Epic Games basically, you know, doing its store as a backend to do payment providing for everybody else, well, while it is good because it means there is more competition, it also does disproportionately benefit Tim Sweeney. So, Tim Sweeney...
That's fine. If somebody else benefits, but everybody else does at the same time, that's a win-win situation. Yeah.
Hey, you know what?
Okay.
You have led to a domino of events that I think is absolutely good for consumers, and I think it's good for developers. But that does not mean we will not be critical.
Apple Games L, Apple
And on the
PCL,
topic of the good guys being, let's just say, a little bit rumbly, okay, we have to talk about Capcom, and the good news is you can actually watch that video right now. The link is about to replace my face on the screen.
Yeah, I'm actually really glad that Bellior made a video about this. I saw this happen, and I never really talked about it when it did happen. It happened like almost a month ago, I'm pretty sure, maybe at least a couple of weeks ago, and it was a massive, massive issue. Missed that video? Well, I'm not going to watch it right now. I was going to do some other stuff right now, but yeah, that's really the way I feel about it. This is a huge, huge thing, and I think it also sets a precedent. I really hope that this opens up a conversation about how it's problematic that MasterCard and Visa effectively control the same duopoly with, what do you call it? They control the same duopoly with the payment processing, because they do the exact same thing. And they make decisions based off of, oh, well, we don't think this is okay or not. Okay, well, if you don't think this is okay or not, and it's not breaking the law, then you've effectively removed an entire company from the market by just the nature of your company. You can't do that, right? That's not good for a free market to have a couple of people that just control the entire thing, especially whenever it's such an important part of the pipeline. So I really hope that this logic is applied to the other companies like this as well. I'm very happy about this. Isn't Steam at risk now with this? Steam is at risk now with this, but that's a good thing. Number one, it's a good thing because it's good for customers. And again, like, things that are good for customers are the main things that matter. Link it again. Yeah, give them a like, because I'm very, very happy about it. Yeah, extremely happy about it. Japan's currently suffering because of Visa. Well, that's Japan's laws, right? I mean, like, I don't know really what else besides that. Google is next. Yeah, definitely. Support Steam, boycott the rest. Steam is never at risk because it's actually good. The difference with Steam is that Steam doesn't operate a monopoly. Like, for example, like, I can just pull up this, right? Like, let's say I want to play Wuthering Waves. Okay, so I want to play Wuthering Waves. I can play Wuthering Waves on Steam, or I can play it on the official launcher, and it's very easy for me to do that. The difference with the Apple Play Store and the Google Play Store is that they create a bottleneck to where it's almost impossible to get any apps from anything else besides that. Or on Epic. Yeah, exactly, right? And I think, yeah, I had it on Epic Games as well. That's the reason why they're bad. And so, like, the problem with, I mean, like, I would agree with you that Steam is an issue if Steam was the only player on the market, but they're not. And there are tons of other people that have their own markets as well. And so Steam doesn't need to be regulated because it's not able to exercise a monopoly. What about game consoles too? I think that I think there probably could be an issue with that, but it just depends on what happens, right? And Apple's moving to buy Unity. That can be very dangerous. I mean, I don't know, maybe, right? I mean, I have no idea. The difference with also with Steam is that you can sell your stuff elsewhere and link it externally, but you cannot sell it for cheaper using Steam's infrastructure. I don't know about the nuance to that, so I just can't really comment on that, and I can't talk about that too much, right? Talk about Nintendo. Well, Nintendo, see, here's the difference, is that Nintendo doesn't own a monopoly on video game companies, on video game consoles. So, like, there are plenty of people that own an Xbox and plenty of people that own a PlayStation and plenty of people that own a PC. So the difference is that where in these other cases, Apple and Google pretty much control the entire pipeline, that's not the case with computers, or sorry, with phones, or with game consoles, Jesus Christ, with game consoles. So that's the big difference there. World War III canceled as Ukraine demilitarizes Putin's Russia. So Ukraine basically pulled a massive, like, honestly, whenever I saw this...
You've got to see this. Ukraine just pulled off one of the most covert, daring military operations you'll ever see. They put FPV attack drones in the roofs of cabins that were mounted on trucks and then driven into Russia by Russian truck drivers. Those Russian truck drivers then drove these attack drones deep into...
Wait, I didn't know it was the Russian truck drivers that did it. Oh, God.
Russia, as far as 3,000 miles from the Ukrainian border. When the signal was given, the roofs of these cabins opened up and the drones flew out. The drones damaged or destroyed 41 of Russia's Tu-160 bombers, known as the White Swans. These are some of Russia's most deadly and capable weapons in their war.
Not really. I mean, if you get your shit destroyed by a flying lawnmower, I mean, like, you wouldn't think maybe you should put this, like, I don't know, like at least in like an aircraft hangar or something.
Against Ukraine.
Yeah, not anymore. I looked at these clips here, like this. And this made me, this is like an advertisement in my mind for me to like, oh yeah, I never finished playing Stalker 2. I need to go back and play Stalker 2 because I got like halfway through the game. I never beat it. And like Stalker 2 is a Ukrainian game. And I was like, oh man, bro, like maybe I should play that game again in celebration of like, you know, Ukraine. Like, I mean, I don't view Russia as like everybody in Russia is evil, but I think Russia is the aggressor in this conflict. And so when Ukraine's able to fight back, I'm in support of that, especially whenever they're attacking a military installation. So that's my viewpoint. I don't want to get into it too much, right? And I know it's really complicated, and I might not be the most educated, but based off of the way that I've seen it and the years that I've seen the things evolved and everybody, I even know people from Ukraine, talk to them, and I've heard how they were, you know, like Zepla, I think is a great example, right? A lot of us know Zepla from Final Fantasy. She was displaced. She used to live in Ukraine, and she was displaced from Ukraine. She had to leave Kiev, and her shit got stolen, and So a lot of us, we actually know a person who was directly materially affected by this in a serious way, right? Like, I mean, so like at that point, like it's very hard for me to think about it from the other perspective. It is. But anyway, when we say fuck Russia, we mean fuck the ones who are running it. Yeah, of course, right? I mean, I totally, I know all the Russian citizens, like they don't all support this, right? And a lot of them that do are probably just victims of propaganda. And I mean, I get it. I understand it. Sure. So Ukraine had this massive fucking attack today. Anyway, I can go back and I can talk about that, but let's just go through and look at this here. And where is it? Ukraine just mounted an attack that marks a turning point in the history of warfare. Hundreds of drones were pre-deployed and then struck 40 aircraft 1,000 kilometers inside of Russia. Oh my God. They have a fucking video of this? So is this like actually a drone that's flying into the Russia base? I love how this is recorded on like, it's like he has OBS on the monitor here. Holy shit. And Chuck Norris? Yeah, sure. This will be a mission in Call of Duty for sure. Yeah, I think so. I want to see this. So you can see all of them. They're already smoking and burning up. Holy fuck, man. It didn't work long on that? Yeah. They're fiber optic controlled. Is that true? I mean, the thing is that this is a thing. I think that a lot of these things, I mean, as far as I know, I could be misinformed on this. Oh my, well, actually, I'm just going off on a tangent. Look at the I was gonna say ships. Look at the what are the planes? The planes. Look at the planes. They're fucking destroyed. Yeah, these look like bombers to me. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, but like, whenever I was like playing video games as a kid, if you saw one of these, it was like, uh-oh, all right, get underneath the bridge or something, right? Holy shit, man, this is incredible. And so they destroyed 40 of these fucking things? Wow. Well, I think this really goes to show, like, I mean, it's I mean, you can have these massive aircraft that are piloted by people, or you can have this smaller machine thing that is just infinitely more effective. And you're seeing this drone warfare play out. Like, I mean, you saw very, very early versions of it in, like, the Iraq War, right? But, like, then you see it now. Like, there are certain militarized police things here in the U.S. that we have that are effectively drones, right? Like that one robot that I found, etc. And cost is everything. Yeah, exactly. Think about how much cheaper this is. And also how much less risk it has. You can see videos of swaths of exposed fiber optic cable. The only thing it did ensure there won't be any peace anytime soon. It will make Russia retaliate harder. I can see your point. I understand it. But Russia has attacked Ukraine very recently. Didn't Russia attack Ukraine like 3 days ago or something like that? I'm pretty sure they did. Yeah, and Ukraine, this is one of the first times that Ukraine has like really gone super inland inside of Russia to attack them pretty much at all. Like, I mean, it's happened before, but like, I think this is definitely, this to me is like the largest data point of it happening so far. Like, it's the third time? Yeah. And so, like, not on this scale, right? Yeah, this is a massive upscaling of it, right? Russia will attack regardless, right? And so, like, if Ukraine playing the defensive role would have worked, it would have worked in the last 3 years. At a certain point, like, I don't think anybody wants a war, right? But I don't think you can fault Ukraine for fighting back after so many years of this not happening. There already is. Yeah, there already is a war. Like, Russia brought the war to Ukraine. At least, and this is also, keep in mind, there are no houses anywhere here. There's no apartment buildings. There's no, like schools being destroyed. There's no collateral civilian damage. This is a military base, and they're destroying military aircraft. Like, I mean, we're talking, really, like, I mean, this is zero casualties. Yes, exactly. Zelensky wants the war. I mean, I don't agree. I don't agree with that. I don't. I know why people say that. I don't agree with that. Russia will retaliate and attack civilians. Yeah. Is it going to show the explosions here? Wait, so he's just getting ready to... I mean, don't they have the... Doesn't Russia have, like, some sort of, like, anti-drone thing? I mean, I know that we had this... I mean, we had this in Pearl Harbor. That was, like, years ago. Don't they have, like, some sort of, like, thing? I guess not. Shouldn't they have, like, a few guys just, like, sitting out there with a machine gun? Like, hey, what the hell? Pop! Okay. Never mind. All right, we're good. Yo, only in Moscow? SAM turrets? Yeah. Oh, man. It's called the Iron... the Iron Net? It's the Iron Window. You just go right through it. Google VEO is really good? No way. It's just no way you're actually just going to land this drone on here and blow it up. Oh, don't mind if I do. Let me just go ahead and, warning, no data up. Yeah, look at them all. Yeah, let me just sit right about over here, and then, boom, wow. We won the war. Russians don't give a fuck about their planes? What is this? Russians don't give a fuck. Damn. Damn. They certainly give a fuck. I mean, I would give a fuck, yeah. And, yeah, the wing got destroyed or anything like that. Not to be xenophobic, Russians reportedly shown to be retarded. Long ago, civilians were dragging sea mines onto the beach. No, Americans would do that, too. It's not Russians being stupid. It's just, no, Americans would easily drag sea mines onto the beach. Yeah, no, I could, you really think that's not going to happen? Absolutely, that's what it would be. And so, yeah, and 100% America. I think Chinese are probably, I think most people would do that. So this will be in the textbook. Russia secretly delivered FPV drones and wooden mobile cabins into Russia. Bro, did they pull... Is this the Ukraine version of the pagers? The drones were hidden under the roofs of the cabins, which were later mounted on trucks. At the signal, the roofs opened remotely. Dozens of drones launched directly from the trucks. What, like a wasp nest? An actual Trojan horse. Yes, no, you're right. Let's watch it.
Откуда взлетает, ничего не понятно, блядь. Вот он, клоун, блядь. Оба ни с того ни с сего, сука. Оба. О, дела, блядь. Ёб твою мать, до чего техника дошла. А нахуя мы работаем за рулем-то, блядь?
True.
Лучше он коптером.
Well, that's only one, though. I want to see like 5 come out.
О, блядь. А, это менты сшибают его, прикинь? Это какой-то...
Why is there random... Why is it every time that I see a video in Russia, there's somebody firing a gun? Why so... Well, is this just what you guys do over there? Like... They're shooting the drones? Did they get it?
Менты промазали нахуй. Ёбаный, он опять туда полетел, сука, в эту гущу. Вот еще один, сука, пидорас. Вот он, еще один пидорас.
Another one. Uh-oh. Oh. Oh. Another one.
Коптер опять взлетел. Откуда?
Never mind. Is it ballady tag? Yeah, I don't know. I never noticed it. Yeah, I don't think he even shot. Did he even get it? He did not even show himself shooting it. You waited that long? I don't know what the hell he's saying. And let's see, is there any more of these? Ukrainian operation against Russia is a wake-up call on the era of drone warfare. One said Ukraine doesn't have any cards. He proved them wrong. 5 aces. Playing with a stacked deck, bro. That's it. Yeah, I guess so. AI, there's 4 aces? Not anymore, bro. Not anymore. And all diamonds. That's right, boys. And he has the cards. I guess so. I mean, World War III, as Ukraine demilitarizes Putin's Russia. I mean, I'd be surprised. Like, I wonder if I mean, Russia has to have drone technology like this too. I mean, they have to. And so, and this is the other one right here. Is people laughing in the background? Is this where it blows up? Jesus, look at that. Wow. Yeah, from Russia, or some from China. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, right? They're buying Iranian drones. Yeah, and Putin's air power is crumbling faster than he can spin it. Every bonner downed is assigned, his grip is slipping. Resilience, tech, and will, that's what wins. Ukraine keeps hitting deep, and they're losing control and they'll surrender. Yeah, we'll see what happens, right? Wow, what a day. More, please. Yeah, exactly. And it's crazy how... What's so crazy to me about this is that I bet this drone was like $4,000. And the plane was $4 million. Wait, wait. What aircraft is this that they're blowing up? Yeah, what is the value of this aircraft? Sorry, what type of aircraft is this? It's a TU-87? TU-95 Bear? Okay, I'm gonna just... How much does it cost to make a TU-95 Bear? 1950s, okay. Well, how much money? It costs $14 million? Equivalent to 100 and... So, let me get this straight. These people blew up a $50 million airplane with a flying lawnmower? Oh no, and 40 of them? Oh my god, that's fucking poetic. This is insane. No, like aluminum breaking diamonds. I know, this is insane. Yeah, it blew up 40 of them. Think about that. It's billions of dollars. Look at this. Seems destroying Russia's strategic bombers was enough for Ukraine. The city of Samorsk that houses Russia's nuclear submarines is no longer not violently exploding. No longer not violently. What does that mean? Yeah, bro, I gotta play Stalker 2 again. Yeah, we're gonna reinstall that tonight. I feel like it's time. Probably bad translation. Yeah, I'm not sure. But, man, that's fucking funny. This one's fake? You think it's fake? Is that it? Well, let's take a look and see. Oh, this is... I already saw this one before. And, if there's any of the other ones, to look at here. I don't think that's real, is it? I don't think it is. Anyway, let's see if I can find some more of these. This is more footage right here. Ukraine carries out the biggest ever swarm drone attack on multiple Russian airfields. They destroyed 40 aircraft, and they destroyed deep inside the bases. Wow. Oh my god. Well, there it is, boys. That's crazy. I mean, we do really want Russia to get desperate right now. They do have nukes. Do we really want Russia to get desperate, though? They have nukes. I think that Ukraine denuked, right? I think that they they denuclearized in, 1993 or something like that. I'm pretty sure they did. There's something like that. I don't remember, all the years or anything like that. Not really. Well, I thought that they did. They did 1994. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, and they did, ironically, because they were assured protection. Oh, fuck. Damn. Holy fucking shit. Let's see here. Secret Service of Ukraine estimates Russia's losses today as a result of spiderweb operation. Let me see what it says, spiderweb operation. Because they're probably going to be using that term, and I can see if I can look it up myself. This is a new page. Did they really say anything about this? The Tu-95 and Tu-22 bombers. Yeah, this is all the ones that we saw before. And 117 drones. So basically, let's say each drone is $1,000, and that's apparently a lot. The costs of getting it there and everything. Let's say you put everything together, it's $1,000. So they spent basically $120K, rounding up. And, no, I guess $5K. A drone is $5K. $4.8 billion. That's how much Russia lost from this. $4.8 billion?
Там полыхает все. О, Господи, еще раз, девочки, еще.
He played both sides? Yeah, not a surprise there. Let's see here. Where's the other one? So is this the map? I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at. Yeah, I'll be honest, I have no idea. So this is this. So I guess this is where it ended up, right? So this must be. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, no one can. I don't know what it says. 780 kilometers. Wow. Oh, I see it. It's right there. Holy shit. Let's see. I'll find the rest of these here. Okay. God damn. This is crazier than you know. The anti-jamming technology is next level. The company I know the company that made it, Raytheon, will do anything to get their tech. Well, what's insane is that Russia didn't already have this. That's what's insane about it. Is especially I mean, to think about you had all these planes. It's basically I mean, you have all of these $50 million planes that are lined up, and you don't have any sort of anti-air, anti-drone technology around it at all. Like, you can't jam fiber optic cables. Well, what I'm saying is that, like, even if you could, like, they would be able to, like, couldn't you just identify, like, yeah, there's a bird out there or something? I mean, I don't know what the fuck, right? It feels like am I the only person that's gotten the same vibe? And, like, I expected whenever this war started, and I think that a lot of people expected this, I expected this war to be over in, like, 3 days, and Russia to just totally roll Ukraine over. That's what I thought was going to happen, right? I thought they were going to just totally destroy them. And I feel like this entire thing, I think it really changed my perspective on how powerful and how big like Russia's military really is. Because it feels like it's definitely more of a paper tiger than I would have expected. Yeah, am I crazy for thinking that makes Russia look weak? Yeah, I think it makes them look really weak. They're 80% propaganda. Well, maybe I bought 20% of the 80%. Yeah, I don't know. Surprising for them too. Yeah, exactly, right? New weapons are very good for defense rather than offense. They got nukes from the Soviets. Their army is shit. It seems that way, yeah. Per Fox News, the White House told Fox News that President Donald Trump and his administration were not warned of the attack ahead of time. I mean, I'm gonna be real. Like, I mean, like, yeah, I'm kind of. Yeah, Trump built for it. I mean, like, Trump said that he was going to get, like, I feel like Ukraine has, they haven't really, I feel like they probably could have attacked and done more of this, but they probably haven't because they thought that there would be peace talks and they were trying to just play defense and hopefully be able to get concessions or something like that. And it's like at a certain point, right? I mean, like, Trump said he was going to have the war ended, you know, the first day he was president. That didn't happen. And at a certain point, I mean, like, there's people dying constantly. And I don't think that you should discount the reality that this actually, I do think, is demoralizing for Russians. Because I think that Russians, whenever they see this and they see a bunch of flying lawnmowers deleting multi-million-dollar bomber planes, and they think, oh my God, how do we let this happen? The level of patriotism there is going to be at a pretty low level. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just me, but, like, I would, if I saw that, I'd be like, what the fuck is this? Yeah, $350 million each. A lot of different numbers are being thrown around, but the number, it seems like they're at least over 20 million, right? And probably way more than that. Now they have nukes. The rest of the equipment is spread for defense across all of Russia. Basically, no tanks, no bombers. Russia will do now because their doctrine about using nukes is clear. This is not a joke. Either the war is either over or they're watching escalation. I think that, in my opinion, I feel like using nuclear weapons will polarize everybody in the entire world against whoever uses them. Like, whether it's America using them, China using them, Pakistan using them, Russia using them, I feel like literally everybody will be against you, and you will be seen as, like, yeah, it's you against the world, right? Exactly. Like, that's literally, like, I don't even think China would support them in that regard. Like, maybe you might think that they will. I don't think that they will. I don't think they will, and if that happens, that would change everything. Even internally? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I don't see nuclear weapons, like, I don't see nuclear weapons ever being used. Maybe this is me being naive, and I think that definitely could be the case, but I personally don't imagine this happening. Look, read it. Give me a minute. Let me pull this guy up. Ukrainian military FPV drones typically cost between $200 and $500 each, with some sources estimating up to $1,000 for the more advanced models. This contrasts sharply with the cost of the sophisticated military equipment like the Tu-95 MS strategic bomber, which would cost over $100 million. Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Wow. That's a lot of money to waste, huh? Jesus, how many people will fall off the windows by accident? Probably some guys driving trucks would. And administration, White House was not aware it was coming. I mean, again, I don't blame Zelensky for not telling Trump, and I think that honestly, Trump can't expect Zelensky to just sit there and, again, because he has to make sure that he's doing the right thing for his people, right? He's ultimately the president of Ukraine, and his main responsibility is to serve the people of Ukraine and to look out for their best interests. And working with Trump and trying to play ball with Trump and waiting for Putin to come around, which apparently just hasn't happened, especially after they recently attacked. I mean, at a certain point, guys, like, he's got to do what's best for his country. So in the war, he's not willing to. And the reason why he's not willing to is because them ending the war means that they will probably lose part of Ukraine. That's the reason why. Russia has now started targeting Ukraine's capital, Kiev. Oh, boy. So we've got a big... we got a big day today. Holy shit. They've been doing that? Yeah, I mean, well, this is like, I don't know. What's this here? You could level London and shine is off. They started doing it for years? Yeah. This is bad. And not new. It's fake. Oh, you think that's fake? Okay, well, maybe you're right. And let's see if I can find the rest of these. I hope Russia will respond to Ukraine in the best possible way. I support Russia. Okay, and let's see here if I can find a few more of these. Yeah, here's some more of the drones right here. Imagine, bro, like this thing that sounds like a fucking, like a bumblebee is just destroying your fucking $100 million planes. I'd be so fucking mad. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of, like, you know, like back in StarCraft, where like you would spend all your money to like make like High Templar or something, and then like they would send in those suicide Zerg and just kill all of them, and it would be like fucking, it was like, you know, 50 crystals and it destroyed all of your guys. Yeah, I'd be yeah, the Banelings, exactly. I'd be losing my fucking mind.
Смотри, что творится, я не знаю даже, что это сейчас взорвалось.
100%
Еще один
demoralizing?
летит.
Yes.
Где?
If you were Zelensky, would you want to surrender to Russia when you've been farming them like this for 3 years? Well, I don't know. I don't think it's that simple. Honestly, I mean, a lot of his people are getting killed there too. And, oh boy. Let's see if I can find a few more of these images. And this is the, so they lost a nuclear submarine. Russia's going to release orange missiles. Ukraine and its allies are about to find out soon. Uh-oh. Russia's began targeting Ukraine's capital. This I'm seeing this post multiple times, right? So, yeah. We'll watch this one again, and I think this will probably be like the last one of these that we can see until new information comes out. Yeah, or Templar. And yeah, it's the same thing. Like, there's another one. Do you remember, like, if you would ever play Zerg, and you would do a massive Zergling rush, and there would just be 2 Archons, and the 2 Archons would just literally kill every Zergling? And it would just be like, all of that time and money and energy and planning just went into it for fucking nothing? Motherfuckers were OP? Yeah, they were.
We are witnessing history, folks. What happened inside of Russia today was part of an operation that took 18 months called Operation Spiderweb. And this was one of those attacks in which we know that when it comes to advancements in drone warfare, this is going to be in the history books. For those who don't know, Ukraine attacked 5 different Russian air bases alongside a Navy base, one of those targets being 3,000 kilometers away. Yeah, that right there is above Mongolia. And their main targets? Going after Russia's strategic bombers, in which we know that over 41 have been hit. Most of them, from the photos and videos we're seeing online, are completely out of commission. So how did Ukraine do this? Well, we're just getting photos and videos uploaded by the SBU, in which we now know how they did it. First, we found out that drones were smuggled into Russia. In this photo, we think there's about a...
driven in by Russian drivers. How did that happen? Did they just, like, not check the back? They're like, all right, drive this truck over to the military base. What's in it? Nothing. Nothing. Bunch of this empty.
drones. And then somehow you could see these containers. These were smuggled in. You could see these things. They got solar panels on them. They removed the tops.
Oh, wait a minute. So there was a separate compartment at the very top that all the drones were actually in. And so they opened it up and they couldn't fucking see anything. And then somebody presses the button, the top thing opens up, and all these fucking drones fly out. Like, yeah, it's like, this is like a magic trick. Do you want to see $5 billion disappear? Watch this.
Of those containers, and they put these drones inside. They then drove these trucks to these different bases. The driver got out, they went back to Ukraine, and those trucks sat there for a couple days. Yeah. And this is what that looked like. You could see
this is the truck we saw.
Those containers look familiar. Here is the lid. Yeah, the lid slid off, and then you could see the drones like this one here pop up and go right to its target.
Oh my
then Ukraine,
God.
being Ukraine, filmed the entire thing with their drones and then sent that data back to the SBU.
Literal fucking kill cams.
And released it all.
This is literally Ghost Recon Breakpoint? Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of military tech and drone tech, I mean, people have been, like, theorizing about this for years. I mean, science, a lot of things in science fiction do end up happening.
We can all see it, and that way Russia can't be like, oh no, they didn't do that. My friends, this is historic. And remember that in less than 24 hours, Ukrainians will be meeting with Russians in Istanbul to talk about peace. Maybe this will find...
It's a bit awkward, you know? Yeah. Do you think Putin will answer with a bigger answer? I don't know. I actually don't know. It makes no sense for them to divulge how they did this. They have very little chance to do it again. I think that... I mean, really? You really think they don't know? Like, you really think the Russian military, they're going to figure this out in like 5 minutes. They're going to figure it out instantly, bro. Like, yeah, they would have known. They would have instantly known. Like, I mean, oh, wow, look at this. Oh, so they brought in a bunch of trucks, and then, oh, I saw, so the top panel slid up, and then the drones... Okay. Like, this isn't some kind of, like, crazy, esoteric, fucking arcane strategy. This is a literal Trojan horse.
Finally move the needle a little bit. I'll be sure to keep you guys updated, so please go ahead and repost my videos and follow me for more.
There it is. And Russians are kings of electronic warfare. This is something truly next generation. No one has been able to jam this new tech. Yeah, somebody said they were fiber optic tech, and that's why they couldn't be jammed. I don't have enough technology information and like knowledge to like know why that's the case, but that's just what I'm hearing myself. And this is the post right here talking about the amount of it. 34% of Russia's strategic cruise missile carriers, worth around $7 billion, were struck today in a massive drone attack, according to Ukraine's Secret Service. President Zelensky says Ukraine is defending itself, and rightfully so. We are doing everything to make Russia feel the need to end this war. Russia started this war, and Russia must end it. Glory to Ukraine. Man. There it is. I mean, I'll tell you this, right? Is that I think especially after like multiple years of like this happening, I mean, Ukraine having a huge W like this, I bet it's probably like really, you know, a huge rallying point for Ukrainian citizens. Massive, massive rallying point. AI will destroy voice actors and gamers will cheer. Yeah, it's about right. Bing.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Gary. I'm a voice actor, I'm a gamer, and I'm a PhD in AI voice stuff.
Good
Today
for
I
you.
wanted to talk about
All right.
the thing that every voice actor is absolutely terrified of. That is actually understanding why AI is predicted to completely obliterate the voiceover industry.
Yep.
And in order to understand this, we actually have to understand something that is seemingly unrelated.
So wait a minute. So the guy that has industry experience as a PhD and also plays video games thinks that the obvious thing that's going to happen? Huh, wow, what a surprise.
To AI, the social side of the voiceover industry. As I'm sure many of you know, there's been a massive controversy with the video game voiceover strike and the Genshin Impact strike. My voiceover mentor, Joe Zizia, who I greatly respect, recently released a video on this topic. So the video got a bit of a mixed reception, and if you ask me, the release of the video was really poorly timed. A lot of people thought the video was biased in favor of the union, and while I don't necessarily agree, I completely understand why they think that. Mostly because while he covered a lot of information about the voiceover union, what it means to go FICOR, and what a Taft-Hartley is, he chooses not to talk about any social aspects of the industry.
Taft-Hartley is the act where they can compel you to go back to work even if you're on strike, and they have to do it within and you have to work for a certain period of time.
In fact, he even admits it in his own video.
And that brings me to the real tricky part. The social side of things.
It's complex.
Understand that I'm not getting to this here because this is not measurable. It is a feeling. So when we start asking questions like, why doesn't everyone just go FICOR? Or are people being blacklisted for working on non-union games during the strike? These really deal with non-measurable social feelings.
I'm not sure he intended this, but the fact that he chose not to talk about these things may have been more informative than if he had actually talked about them. Because it highlights one specific point. Voice actors cannot speak about the social aspects of the industry, and they will never talk about blacklists. Now, just to clarify, there may be some people who aren't familiar with the entertainment industry lingo who think that a blacklist is a literal list of names. It's not really. As Joe said,
Well, I don't know about that. I heard I was on one of those.
The blacklist is mostly just a feeling. If you are on the blacklist, it just means that people will refuse to work with you for any possible reason outside of the merit of your own product. There are plenty of industry leaders who will deny that the blacklist exists, so you won't find very many news articles about it, but you don't need to look very hard to see that.
It doesn't need to, it's not a death note. It's just a group of people that are just widely accepted to be ostracized from the greater group of whatever commercial thing is happening.
The blacklist clearly does exist. For example, let's just take a look at what started the whole Genshin Impact fiasco. When voice actor Jacob Takanashi was cast in a role that some other voice actors thought he shouldn't be cast in, they just started blacklisting him immediately. Voice actor Shara Kirby just blatantly said it. You'll never work another job again. Wait,
what? This is gonna be, oh, it's on Blue Sky. Oh, well, I mean, of course. Yeah, duh. This has got to be the most classless thing I've seen with everything. So this guy makes an announcement that he's going to work on Genshin Impact, and have fun with Genshin. You'll never work on anything else, LMAO. What a great mindset to have. Agree with us and abide by our rules, or we're going to collectively make it to where you can't have a career. I wonder why people don't like them.
Again, Kaylee Mills publicized Jacob's financial information. And
this is one small job for him, not his full-time work. It's Karina's bread and butter. He's done so very little voiceover work that it isn't what he's relying on to pay the works. For all we know, his wife's the breadwinner. Either way, they bought a house recently, so I doubt this was a necessary job for survival. It's so funny that these people think that some random man on the internet has to explain to them and fucking tell them why it's okay that he tried to get a job. Who the fuck are you?
Attempt to justify the bullying that Jacob received.
Jesus.
Voice actor Jun Yoon, who is a prominent voice acting veteran, went out of his way to ridicule Jacob by publicly stating that he's blacklisting Jacob from his casting. Honestly, actually...
Jesus, bro. What a bunch of nasty fucks. This is great. And these are the ones, these are the people, they're called professionals. Isn't it sad? Why, though? Because he didn't want to play game. He didn't want to do what they wanted him to do. They're so deep into their own bubbles? Yeah, I guess so. Why do they all hate Jacob? I'm out of the loop. Because he took a job with a company that they were striking against at the same time. And so they tried to, because they didn't want him to do that, they are trying to like collectively destroy his career.
Seeing June do this was really upsetting to me because up until that point, June was actually one of my idols. Never meet your heroes, right? Within moments of announcing his voiceover
He replaced a striking actor? Yeah.
The industry started cutting all ties with Jacob. This happens all the time in the industry. In Jacob's case, it was because he had the wrong opinions or did something that people didn't like. But it might just be because you said something mean to someone or you criticized their work or maybe they just think you're ugly. There's virtually no way to stop a blacklist from happening, and it's actually an indicator of a much larger problem in the industry. The voiceover industry has no standards. And by standards, I don't mean like a girl doesn't have standards for her deadbeat biker boyfriend. I mean that the industry doesn't have a clear metric to evaluate a good voiceover performance from a bad voiceover performance. We can look at the field of engineering.
Well, I think the reason why is because they don't care about that and they don't want standards because standards could put them at a disadvantage. So a lot of these people don't like standards. You know who hates meritocracy and standards and quantitative measuring? People that would lose because of it. That's the reason why.
For a perfect contrast to this. Let's say two people are building a rocket. One flies 20 feet before crashing, the other flies 50 feet before crashing. That in and of itself is a metric for evaluation.
It is.
Now, it might not be the perfect metric or the metric that you need to evaluate the effectiveness of a rocket, but at the very least, the metric exists. More importantly, it's possible that the guy who built the better rocket is a complete jerk. Now, you can say you don't want to work with the guy because he's a jerk and he's terrible to work with, but you cannot deny that he built the better rocket. All this is just thrown out in the voiceover industry. Their metrics are like which performance is more emotional, which one is more nuanced, which performance is more real or grounded. These things
sounds like a bunch of we just make this shit up as we go. You know, like, yeah, we're gonna just make up some bullshit.
Aren't really metrics because they're all opinionated. Voice directors or voice actors or casting directors.
They're eating each other in those purity tests? Yeah, of course. That's what these people always do.
Will always claim that they can just hear a performance and know that's the best performance and that's the right one for the job. Put a pin in that claim, we'll come back to that later. But the truth is, one casting director might like one performance, one casting director might like another performance, and you cannot argue which one is better. It happens all the time. And this lack of standards, this conveniently flexible interpretation of what is good and what is bad is exactly why blacklisting happens. Any casting director could just argue that they weren't the right fit for the job, and there is no way to argue against it. And unfortunately, the most important social aspect of the industry is evaluation and casting. Hugh Klitsky, an amazing voiceover coach who I really respect, summarized it really well in a bit of a comedic LinkedIn post. He said this: "You didn't get the job? Here's why. You sounded like the producer's mom. You sounded like the director's ex. You sounded happy, but not the right kind of happy. You sounded too tall or too blonde or too much like everyone else, and so on." If you read through the entire post, you'll notice that there is a reason that it...
the reason why is because I just decided why. That's it.
Is missing from that list. Someone else is better than you. Because as an industry veteran, he knows that the industry doesn't have those metrics, at least not in a way that actually matters. Because if you look at the metrics that the voice directors use, nuanced, emotional, grounded, real, you'll also notice that there's one metric that the voice acting industry generally doesn't use. And it's probably the most important metric of all: whether or not the audience likes it. And that's the only...
Isn't that crazy? And this is the problem that a lot of these games have, is that they're so stuck in their own professional bubbles, they forgot what being a professional means. It means that you're selling a product. So the moment that you're not focusing on what the actual customers want and you're just focusing on like your own invented, like you've created these criteria lists and now you have everybody accommodating them and listening to them, it's insane. Yeah, like, okay, that's great, but like this isn't really going to resonate. This isn't going to guarantee that people are going to like this.
Only metric that actually matters. Anyone who's been paying attention to AAA video games the past few years knows that the industry, or
it's actually pathetic to look at Assassin's Creed Shadows. Assassin's Creed Shadows with Expedition 33. It's not even remotely close. It's like looking at like a text-based adventure game and comparing it to The Witcher 3.
At least the video game industry at large tends to use metrics that are inversely correlated with what the audience likes.
Yep.
Often you'll see that the games the industry claims are high quality end up actually being the worst games when rated by the gamers. And unfortunately, the video game voiceover industry is starting to go down the same path.
Yep.
They've used up all their remaining goodwill with the SAG-AFTRA video game strike, and now they're starting to deny that the audience...
Well, the problem is that there is a general lack of empathy for people working in entertainment that have problems with how they're being paid and being treated, because people view entertainment as a luxury profession. So anybody who's complaining about it is just not thankful enough for what they have. That's the reason why it happens.
Is even relevant to the industry's success at all. But when the industry stops caring about how an audience evaluates their product, it always predicts the industry's failure, and worse, predicts their...
What a shock. So this guy, so let me get it straight. The PhD guy has come to the conclusion that if you don't care about what your audience wants, you're going to start losing money. I knew he was smart. What a fucking wizard.
Take over by AI. But if you don't believe me and you want evidence, we can look at another industry that's been just completely demolished by AI.
Furry art.
Visual arts. So when I first started my undergraduate in engineering approximately like 15 years ago, I tried to convince every single one of my artist friends that AI was a legitimate threat to art. And of course, they didn't believe me because art is the human endeavor. But I pointed to one very specific thing. Since the 20th century, art...
You know what's really funny about it? Is that do you remember there was that one quote from I Am Legend where it was like, yeah, but can a human write a symphony and draw this art and do all this stuff? And then the robot was like, yeah, can you? That actually was so fucking telling. Not the iRobot, not I Am Legend. That was another Will Smith movie. Yeah, it was iRobot. And I Am Legend was like a few years after that. Like, I think that was very telling, and nobody even realized it. Y'all triggered? Yeah. His hard as fuck? Yeah, it was. I remember watching it, I was like, damn, he got you there.
Industry had lost all standards. We were in the era of Jackson Pollock, who was famous for randomly throwing paint onto a canvas. One of artist Casimir
Oh my god, my mom would be... my mom, by the way, knew all kinds of art stuff. She taught me all about art, about every fucking famous painting, fucking everything about it. And she was a fan of Jackson Pollock, and she got I always thought Jackson Pollock was just a bunch of fucking bullshit. And even now, I understand, so Cody's a big fan, and so she had a few paintings from Jackson Pollock, obviously Prince. And I gave them all to Cody. I was like, you know what, Cody, you can have these. This is your guy. This is not my guy. I never understood this. That was it. They're all Cody's now. They're funded by the CIA. Yeah. Expressionism. Yeah. I could never get into it.
His most famous paintings from 1915 was literally a black square. In 2010, a sculptor named Marcel Waldorf won an award for his sculpture of a woman urinating. Essentially, the idea that artistic beauty is in the eye of the beholder is kind of the prevailing theory right now. You couldn't just evaluate art and just say whether or not it was good or bad. This allowed artists to do just about anything and make up a reason for why it's art. But the moment AI art exploded onto the scene, the artists faced a major problem. And that problem actually had nothing to do with artistic skill, and it had nothing to do with technology. It was actually a philosophical problem. If artistic beauty is in the eye of the beholder, it is actually impossible to justify that human art is any better than AI art. Essentially, they...
Fucking exactly, bro. Fucking exactly. People just make this shit up. Exactly. There it is. Yep.
They had no way to justify their own existence because they gave up their standards over 100 years ago. And the lack of standards that allowed their artistic industry to exist was now being reinterpreted to justify that human artists were...
Christie's AI art sale defies controversy, surpasses expectations, draws big money bids and thousands of protest signatures. Thousands of protest signatures? Oh no! Really? Oh no!
No longer necessary. Because without standards, AI art is just as good as anything else. This led to a lot of panicking artists turning to really poorly thought out metrics. Things like AI art had no soul, or AI art had no art.
AI art has no soul. Okay, well, I guess was Assassin's Creed Shadows made with AI art? What about Dragon Age the Veilguard? This whole idea of this abstract concept of soul, I think that the soul has left video games much longer than AI.
Artistic intention behind its choices. I wanted to see how valid these metrics really were, so I conducted a bit of an experiment-ish interview with a lot of the detractors of AI art, specifically about Jackson Pollock and his work. The experiment was really simple. I showed them 2 images. One of them was an AI-generated painting. Usually I chose some sort of like fantasy landscape painting like this. The other one is one of Jackson Pollock's paintings. And I asked a very simple question. Do you truly believe that this painting has artistic value and this painting doesn't? And they always said yes. So the natural follow-up was always, please explain why. And this is where they started stumbling over their words.
Cause you see fucking you like, cause back there, well, you can't, okay, you have to understand it fucking, yeah, right. Yeah,
he said things like, there's clear purpose behind the Pollock painting. The Pollock painting actually has like a human soul. You can clearly see the intent behind the Pollock painting and all these.
You just making some shit up, huh? You're just riffing.
Sorts
just
of
talking that bullshit.
And even as they stumbled over their words, I always gave them the chance to take back what they said.
Yeah.
Something like, if you can't come up with a reason, you can just take it back and just say the 2 paintings are equal or something like that.
Yeah.
But for like the 100 people I interviewed, they never took it back. They always claimed that the Pollock painting clearly had intent and value and was more interesting, and AI art simply wasn't. So you can just imagine their panic.
You know what I think would be an even better one? Get AI art of Jackson Pollock paintings, because AI can recreate other facsimiles of paintings that would be identical to his, and then have somebody pick out if you can really tell the difference. Give them 10 AI and 10 real ones. Pick out the 10 real ones. That's what I would do.
I revealed to them that that Pollock painting they just gassed up was made by AI.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Wow. Oh, shit. That's what that's, oh, I love it. They're so cooked. Yep, I know.
So yeah, I generated that image a couple years back using ChatGPT specifically to run this experiment.
It's not
and
even
you can
a new
believe
one.
me, the backpedaling that they tried to do was absolutely. And from here, I asked them a very simple question. Based on what you know now, will you admit that AI art has real artistic value? And like half of them just stormed out before they even had a chance to answer, because they knew they couldn't answer.
I still gotta
without
play this
completely
game,
destroying
man.
their beliefs. If they answered yes, they had to admit that AI art was actually valuable.
Yeah, of
and
course.
if they answered no, they had to admit that they lied. They were told that an image, in this case the AI Pollock image, was valuable simply because Jackson Pollock made it. And from there, they just reverse engineered any.
It's valuable because it's valuable. Great. Okay. Yeah, I can see why they're getting replaced.
Reason they wanted to justify why the image was valuable. That sounds familiar. Maybe like a casting director who listens to a voice actor he's friends with and just so happens to hear that he's the best. But everyone knows it's just the Emperor's new clothes. You know that story of the Emperor dancing around in his underwear and everyone has to pretend he's wearing pretty clothes because they don't want to get beheaded? We look upon a picture of paint thrown on a wall, and the artists demand that you pretend it's valuable. But when you show a coal miner a picture of a black square and tell him that it's more valuable than his entire career of mining for...
Look, all famous art is, it's just NFTs for rich people. That's all. They're NFTs for rich people, and it's not even money laundering. The reason why they have value is because they are perceived to have value, and they are perceived to have value because people want them to have value. That's it. Do you own any art? Yeah, sure. I mean, like, I don't own any, like, myself. I mean, like, I'm not really into it, but my mom was, obviously. Like, she was an artist herself, and so, you know, like, there's paintings all around the house.
When you tell a 9-to-5 office worker that he's uncultured and uncivilized because he doesn't respect the artistic value of a painting of literally nothing, when you stop considering what the common man thinks is good and demand that your art...
See, here's there's something, this is another, like, this guy is a prim and proper PhD student, so he would never look at it this way, right? But I would. So if AI art can make something that you can jerk off to, does that not pass the biological Turing test? I feel like it does. I mean, at that point, if it can elicit the most biological response that is innate to humanity, do you want to impregnate AI? Some of them. Not all of them. Yeah, I'm telling you guys. It's big.
Be respected through either nonsensical standards or even just blatant lies. Do not be surprised when the common man cheers for your destruction. And unfortunately, this is where the voice acting industry finds themselves now. We've used up all our goodwill in the SAG-AFTRA strike. We've stopped using the same metrics that the audience uses to decide what is a good product. We've blatantly attacked...
Is it really that much different? Damn, that's crazy, right? What the hell? Wow.
And disregarded the gamers. So do not be surprised when the gamers cheer as AI destroys the entire voiceover industry that has been built on a lie. And by the way, for the few voice actors that are still watching out there, I'm not even saying that casting directors are bad at their jobs. Many casting directors I know are actually amazing at their jobs. But what
Of course. Yeah, and this is always the reality. It's that the majority of voice actors, casting directors, and people that are working in this industry are hardworking, good-hearted people that will be displaced by technology. And I think it's sad. It is. It's sad that's going to happen. I mean, it is the natural progression of technology, of you know, like human perception of things. So it's not like it's a terrible thing, but it's sad but inevitable, basically. Yeah, but I can empathize with them, and I can understand, like, yeah, man, that must really suck for that to happen to you.
I'm saying is that if you cast someone for a job, you better be able to justify it to the audience. Because casting is effectively deciding who gets to represent your product. So if you end up casting someone who attacks the gamers, is a bully, is threatening, or is just blatantly hostile, I guarantee you...
See, that's the issue, is that, like, if you hire people that people don't like, that's going to be a bad thing. Like that Rachel Zegor girl, like, everybody hates her now. Like, she's done. She's cooked. Like, who's going to hire her to do anything? Snow White, yeah, look at that. Yeah, and it's like, that's really it. When do you let AI take over Asmongold? Oh, about 3 months ago.
You won't be able to justify that. Now, since we've talked a lot about blacklists, I just wanted to leave something with the gamers that is actually really important and can help you take back your games from some of the more malicious players of the industry. The real blacklist belongs to the gamers. This is
that's fucking right. God damn, that's fucking right. That is it. Because this is what I love about people that are like, I don't know, but I really like it. Let me think a good way to say this. So I always feel good whenever I have viewpoints that are in alignment with people that I think are smart and people that are in, like, good positions. And I think this is one of those examples. And it's like, yes, okay, I'm not crazy, because I have all these random idiots that will come out and say this stuff to me. And I'll be like, no, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. And then finally, it'll be like somebody that, like, really knows what they're talking about. Like, well, actually, yeah, that's it. Like, I remember I had the same thing happen. I went to, like, this one event, and, like, the guy that ran all the IT for the event, and the guy that owned this, like, massive building both of them were like, bro, we love you. You're great. This is awesome. And like, that was like, they didn't even know the other people I was with, but like, they knew me. So I was like, yeah, that's, of course.
Important to understand because as a collective, you gamers have a blacklist that is far more powerful than anything else in the industry.
Somebody says, what do you gain by going after the actors and the artists? Well, like, for example, like if a person who is making content is making statements and doing things that you don't agree with and pushing an ideology that you think is reductive or bad, or is just rude and you don't like them, I think that exercising your commercial freedom to choose not to consume content with them involved, I think that's part of your rights as a customer. And so, like, yeah, you get better products. Exactly. And so, like, why do you want to have to deal with that? Better games? What else? Well, that's it. That's what matters. Discourage retard behavior? Yeah, exactly. People don't want to reward retard behavior.
As a collective, you gamers have a blacklist that is far more powerful than anything else in the industry.
Just look at Ubisoft.
It's actually really easy to use. So say there's a voice actor that you think doesn't represent what you want the gaming industry to be.
Don't
you
spend
simply
money.
need to take 2 very easy steps. Step 1, don't buy their games.
What?
Super easy, right? If they're in a game and you don't want them to represent the industry, just simply refuse to buy their games. The companies will notice.
What?
And frankly, you guys have done a great job of that in the past.
We have. We've been sending them all back to McDonald's. They're all going back to DoorDash. And that's it. And it will take time. It's not going to happen overnight, but it will take time. And it will happen.
A whole bunch of games that you all felt
Avowed?
were not really what you wanted. Honestly,
That's right.
It's kind of scary how good you guys are at that. Step 2,
There's room to improve. There's lots of room to improve.
The companies know why you're not buying their games. When a company announces their game on Twitter, for example, simply make a straightforward and simple statement. Something like, due to how this person bullies their fellow voice actors, I will no longer be buying games that feature them. Or, I believe that this person does not represent what I want from the gaming industry, and I will no longer be buying games that feature them.
Well, what really matters, like, you know, talk is cheap, right? A lot of people say this, like, do you remember all the times that, like, somebody would make, like, I did this, or, like, a lot of people did this, like, they would complain about the game constantly, and then they just go right back to playing it? The real thing and what really matters is if you actually act on these impulses and you simply actually stop buying it.
But the next part is really important. Do not be lulled into a bad faith conversation. If someone responds to your post with insults or hatred...
Never play a game on somebody else's rules. Don't do it. They're going to set you up to lose.
Simply ignore them. Do not turn your statements into bullying, and definitely do not turn them into threats, doxing, or harassment. The arts industries are really good at ignoring criticism.
Like, am I in a competition with Little Kerbo to get the most death threats from Insol MiHoYo fans? Because if so, I want out. I have had death threats every day since I announced that since I announced being the voice of Paimon. Well, I mean, I guess Karina, today must be a really good day for her, right? Because now she's not going to voice the character anymore, and she won't be getting any more death threats. I think this is a win-win situation. The players win, and she wins. Everybody's happy. This is a huge W. It's insane that people have nothing better to do than harass and send death threats. How much do you want to bet if you click on this person's profile, they've been harassing people and, like, contributing to harassment of somebody else? Every time.
If they can turn it into something worse. Do not give them an excuse to ignore your criticism. Simply make the straightforward statement with no bullying and no insults and walk away. I guarantee you
that's the reason why I never make fun of people's appearance, and it's the reason why I never make fun of, like, immutable characteristics, and I don't bully people. It's because my goal, it's not because I don't want to. Of course I want to call people fat. Of course. My goal is to make whatever I want to have happen. That's what I care about. I do. I do. Like, if you go back, I hardly ever make any of those. Come on, let's be honest. When was the last time I made fun of somebody for the way they look? Today? When? When? That's right. So I don't. Chat's projecting hard. Yeah, bro, you call everyone hogs, my dude? No, you see, like, I make fun of fat people in general, but I don't call people fat specifically. Did you guys ever notice that? Like, I talk about hogs in a general sense, but I rarely refer to individuals as hogs. Think about it. Semantics, yes.
Companies will notice, because at the end of the day, you guys are the ones paying them. And if you guys stop paying them, you bet they will fix things immediately. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Get out there and go change the industry for the better, in the way that only you gamers can. Wherever you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night.
I bet people are really mad about this video.
Next time.
This guy was fucking based. Holy shit. God damn. Wow. The Jackson Pollock reverse Uno Among Us play? Man. That was a good one. That was a fucking good one. This guy's only got 169 subs. He's like a really small creator. And the same thing has been posted on my Reddit a few times. I think people have really wanted me to look at it and like get his insight. I think he really, he put together a really great video, and he dropped a nuke on him. He did. That was a really good one. So yeah, give it a like. And it's funny because like a lot of people dislike this video too. Like, I think it's probably a hose mad situation in this case. Definitely a hose mad situation. But yeah, glad you finally watched it. No, I really support it. I'm going to give him a sub myself, Gary. And there it is. So yeah, there's his channel, and I totally support what he's saying. And I think, again, if you antagonize the players are going to antagonize you. Imagine that. For me, one question matters. Is it good? If it is, the companies will use it and the companies won't care. And then he knows. That pretty much sums it up. Actors and artists care about the process and creativity of art, but at the end of the day, the public cares about whether or not it's good. I'm glad you posted this because your sentiment is exactly what I'm trying to get the VAs to realize. It is impossible to have a man understand something when his salary depends on not understanding it. I think this is an Upton Sinclair quote. I'm not sure exactly who it was. But yeah, this predates AI. This predates all of this stuff. Shit, true. Yeah, this is a very common sentiment. It's been going on for years, hundreds of years probably. They don't want to understand it. That's it. AI will never insult your customers on Twitter. Executives know this. Yep. There we go. The two big reasons why I refuse to buy any product that comes with AI. Yeah, I'm not going to read any of that. But anyway, so yeah, I totally agree with this video for sure. And I think AI is going to become more popular in general. What the fuck? An attack has occurred on a pro-Israel protest in Boulder, Colorado. Initial reports suggest Molotov cocktails were used, and there are multiple casualties, including children. Oh no! My fucking God! Sounds horrible. Yeah. I'm watching a video. It's sick. Yeah. Yeah, look at this. This is insane. Oh boy. Well, people are becoming radicalized. Yeah, I think this is really, really bad. And I think this is going to keep happening more too, by the way. And we're aware and fully investigating the targeted terror attack in Boulder, Colorado. Our agents and law enforcement are on the scene already, and we will share more information as it becomes available. I wonder how long it's going to take. Can I DM Kash Patel? Somebody needs to... Can I message him? I can't DM him. Yeah, because I need to tell him, like, bro, like, what are y'all doing? What are you guys doing? I tweet at him, yes. Like, really, this is nuts. Y'all really need to get on top of some of these people online. They promote this shit, and there's nothing ever happens. Oh, nothing happens to him. Yeah. L, more online censorship? This isn't, well, guys, this is not more online censorship. It was never acceptable to make calls for violence and to promote terror organizations. This is not, guys, this is not censorship. This is the law. This is the First Amendment. I don't want any new rules. All I want is the existing rules to be applied fairly to the people that are obviously breaking them. Like, somebody got to say this shit, man. FBI personnel, what is this here? Are on the scene in Boulder along with local law enforcement. We are investigating this incident as an act of terror and in the targeted violence. All the necessary assets will be dedicated to this investigation. If you have any investigative tips, please contact the FBI. We can find you. You cannot hide? Well, then why can't you find anybody online? Like, I don't know. Can I DM this guy? Maybe I should DM him. No, I can't DM him either. Yeah, I mean, really, they're not paying attention to this shit. Like, honestly, they're not. And so this is the guy that did it right here. Several pro-Israel supporters were attacked by a guy with fire by a pro-Hamas protester. I don't know about him being pro-Hamas. It's hard to say. We don't know that yet. Yeah, I called the FBI to report people doing this online, and they just hung up on me. Thank goodness you have the balls to say it. For real, bro. Thank you. Yeah, this is embarrassing, man. Like, because the thing is, like, I think the like, how are you letting a bunch of people go from the FBI whenever you should get them, you should recalibrate them and have them, like, do this, right? Before you fire them, at least.
The governor of Colorado said, I am closely monitoring the situation in Boulder, and my thoughts go out to the people who've been injured and impacted by this heinous act of terror. This is the governor of Colorado calling it a heinous act of terror and saying people have been injured. Hate-filled acts of any kind are unacceptable, he says. While details emerge, the state works with local and federal law enforcement to support this investigation. More info will be provided as it comes available.
According to the witnesses who spoke with CBS, the suspect attacked people walking to remember the Israeli hostage. This is not a protest. It's a peaceful walk to show solidarity with the hostages and their families, and a plea for their release, said Run for Their Lives, who organized the walk. Domestic terrorism. I mean, it's not even a question whether it's domestic terrorism or not. I mean, it's unequivocally domestic terrorism, and anybody can see that. I mean, if you think it's not, I mean, I think that you're just trying to hide something that's obviously the case. The video could be TOS, by the way. I know, that's why I'm pausing and not showing the video. But thanks for reminding me. So, yeah, exactly why shutting down harmless domestic terrorism groups is such a necessity. That's right. Clear images of the guy who threw some kind of incendiary device. This is it. Yep. Jesus.
Witnesses were here. We've taken them to another location to debrief them and interview them. As we do that, I think the picture will become more clear. But it would be irresponsible for me to speculate on motive this early on. We're only a couple hours into this thing.
About the suspect, can you confirm the description about him? Because we know any picture running in social media.
I haven't seen it, and I wasn't here when he was arrested. All I know is it's an adult male. We're working to identify that person. We're working to figure out where they're from, and we're in contact with our federal partners as well as we figure that out.
Was something thrown at the group?
That is being investigated as well. So our initial call, as I mentioned, was a report that someone was setting people on fire. That is fairly consistent with the injuries that we found.
So that's what happened.
We're not 100% certain how that happened, and that's what we're doing to interview. There's a lot of witnesses that we're interviewing. I suspect within this evening, I suspect we'll have a better idea of exactly how those injuries occurred.
Are you guys going to have additional security for Jewish and Israeli people helping the hostages in Istanbul right now? because this is a weekly occurrence, are you guys going to now have some additional security measures to protect use in Boulder?
So what I will say is, again, I cannot confirm right now that this was targeted at a specific group of people. We understand that there's a lot of tensions right now on a lot of issues in the United States and everywhere. Once we have a clear motive, we will react accordingly. And if that motive was a group was targeted, we will absolutely.
No, that's fair for him not to.
That additional security, additional presence. We want people to feel safe no matter what they're here for.
How many people were injured?
I don't have an exact number. What I will say is multiple. I can confirm that Boulder Community Hospital received multiple patients, and some of those patients were transferred to other hospitals. Right now, we have detectives working to find out specifically.
If they had to be transferred, that means there's probably a lot.
Again, hopefully later this evening we'll have an exact number. Right now, I'll just say multiple.
Any
Take like one more question.
Any life-threatening injuries?
I believe so. What I'm being told is there are a range of injuries from very serious to more minor. And again, I just am. My heart goes out to those victims, and we're keeping them in our thoughts, prayers, and minds as they recover.
Or they're
I gotta go back
understaffed.
to the command post.
Yeah, maybe.
And I'll tell you that we are going to have another update later tonight. We will post that out and we will live stream it as well. So follow our social media for the next update. We will have another update for you this evening.
Are you going to expand the closures to other businesses, or is it for?
We will put that out if we do. Right now we just have these. So, thank you. We will put out when we have another update tonight.
Thank you. Just staying away.
The public information officer for the Boulder Police Department. We are in the very, very early stages of this active investigation, and Chief Stephen.
This is the beginning. We'll watch this.
What happened this afternoon?
What happened? There was another terrorist attack from a anti-Israel person who threw Molotov cocktails into a peaceful protest of children and burned multiple people alive and killed them. That's what happened.
Hold on, see it.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Dion said, my name is Stephen Redfern. I serve as the police chief here in Boulder, Colorado.
Killed?
Today I'm here to give you very...
Yeah, my understanding is that 2 people were killed. Is that something that's not true? If that's not true, then I apologize. It's not true, or at least it's not certain yet? Okay, so we don't know yet.
Preliminary information about an attack that occurred
we'll find out
in downtown Boulder at about 1:26 p.m.
Can't know yet?
today.
Yeah, we'll see.
At that time, Boulder dispatch received several calls to the county courthouse located at 1325 Pearl Street here in Boulder. The initial callers indicated that there was a man with a weapon and that people were being set on fire. The initial response by our officers, we were on scene very quickly. When we arrived, we encountered multiple victims that were injured with injuries consistent with burns and other injuries. While our officers and paramedics and fire department personnel got those victims quickly to the hospital, our officers
might be confusing a Paris attack. Oh, you know what? I was. I apologize. I was thinking about the Paris attacks.
We encountered that suspect who was taken into custody without incident.
Yeah,
that suspect, who I'm not able
was
to
wrong about
ID
that.
at this time, was taken to the hospital with some minor injuries as
Another
well.
terror attack.
And there's a lot more we're investigating right now before I'm able to release information on that person.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
The scene itself is contained, but we have a large area here in downtown Boulder closed off right now.
Why can't not ID them? They just they don't do it immediately.
The area. This area is not safe yet. We're dealing with a vehicle of interest. We're dealing with a large area that we are making sure it's safe before we allow people to come back into the scene.
Yeah.
If your vehicle is here in the several block perimeter that we have,
new video, suspect yelling, "How many people have you killed?"
When the roads are open and people can retrieve.
If you want to find me to clip that, you can send it to a mod. I can watch it.
Through this complex scene. What I will say, lastly, is this was a beautiful Sunday afternoon in downtown Boulder on Pearl Street, and this act is unacceptable. I hope you'll join me this evening as we're working.
There's a pause. Do you think there should be consequences for leftist influencers fueling this extremism? I think that if you are promoting and providing a platform for this type of extremism, then yeah, I do think so. I don't think that being anti-Israel is obviously, right? Like, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Israel. I'm just an even smaller fan of burning people alive that support Israel. I think that's even worse than Israel itself. But like in general, these are two different things. So I do think that I really think that what needs to happen is that these websites, like places like Reddit, and I think Reddit and Twitter are probably the two worst places for this type of radicalism. And I think it's especially true on Reddit. I think that really the FBI needs to be, and TikTok. Yeah, TikTok's another one too. You're right. I forgot about that. Twitch. I mean, Twitch is really just pretty much, I mean, it's centered entirely around Hassan, right? I mean, like that's, let's be honest, right? And like 3 orbiters that don't matter. So like that's about it. The majority though, I mean, and Twitch is like a microcosm compared to the size of Twitter or Reddit or TikTok, right? I mean, like, let's be honest, right? And it's like nothing. It's like 1%, if not less, I mean. And so the truth is that I do think that the FBI needs to look into a lot of these people that are advocating for violence and pushing for violence, because I think that it's all over these platforms. It's not like it's something that's like just stated offhandedly or whatever. It's everywhere. Literally everywhere. And I'm not talking about somebody who's like saying, I hate Israel, fuck Israel. I'm saying somebody who's saying we should burn Israelis, you know, Israelis deserve to suffer for this. You know, like if you punch somebody like this or you hurt them, it's okay. Like there are so many overt calls for violence that are happening on social media right now that I don't even think that we need to get into the gray areas, because there are so many black and white examples right now. And nothing is happening to these people, and there's no consequences for it. The websites aren't moderating it, and they're just letting these people run wild. And I think the truth is that the way to solve this is so easy, and these companies are just simply refusing to do it. Like, really, they're just refusing to do anything. And so, and it's not even, the thing is also, like, I blame the platforms, but I mainly blame the FBI. Because this is their job. They're supposed to investigate these people and prevent these people from existing and from, like, you know, posting this stuff and hold them accountable, and nothing happens. And these are the same people, by the way, that were posting the 8647 thing. Like, how many cryptic messages and calls for violence are we going to have until people realize that these people are obviously malicious, they are obviously aggressive, they are obviously not only condoning violence, but actively trying to support it in the most subversive way that they're allowed to? Come on. Like, what is this? By your initial logic, even Twitch is to be blamed for some extent to this? Twitch, yes, Twitch has become a hotbed for extremism for this kind of stuff. And I think that you, like, I mean, really, like, whenever you see Hassan reading the Israeli Shooters Manifesto, and the chat, his sub-only chat in emote-only mode is spamming his emote for being subscribed to him, and it's a heart emote. And as far as I know, these people probably never got banned. There's nothing that ever, I don't know, like, do they still have their account? Like, whatever happened to these people? Why not say 4chan as well? Because 4chan is so unhinged that literally everything on there is retarded. But the difference between 4chan and Reddit and Twitter and TikTok is that it's much more one-dimensional in its problems. So it's not that 4chan is okay and doing it on 4chan is all right. But what I'm saying is that 4chan has 50 problems and these other places have like 3. And so it's easier to focus on. And also it's probably easier to find people that are posting on like TikTok, for example, because they're posting on accounts that they probably have linked to their phone number. It'd be a lot easier to find them.
Through this investigation, we are working.
When did 86 become violence? It never was violence when I worked at a restaurant. Okay. So, let me think of a way to explain this. Well, let me just explain the idea rather than try to come up with a metaphor. Trump's not in a restaurant. He's not in a restaurant. He's not working in a restaurant. Neither is James Comey. So it's easy to say that, but different things have different meanings in different contexts.
Came from the command post. We've got dozens and dozens of people here, our state, local, and federal partners working through this to figure out exactly what happened. I ask for a little bit of patience as we do that, but also I ask that you join me in thinking about our victims, the families of those victims, and everyone involved in this tragedy.
Yeah.
Our hearts go out to them, and we are going to do everything we can to work as hard as we can throughout the evening to provide more information and get answers for everyone. With that, as I stated, it would be irresponsible for me to speculate right now on motive and other things.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
I'll take maybe a handful of questions, but then I've got to go back to a briefing.
I had a quick one.
Yes, Sean.
Was an actual protest going on when this occurred? Were a group of people gathered and were words said that would indicate this had anything at all to do with that protest?
So what I will tell you, on Pearl Street, it's a walking pedestrian mall downtown here. There was a lot of people out. Very beautiful day.
Do you think this attack was fueled by left-wing extremism? Yeah. I mean, like, I'm not the police, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. But yeah, 100%. I mean, they have to be sure before they say it, because like them saying it means more than me saying it. But it sure seems like it.
There was a group of pro-Israel people that were there in a peaceful demonstration. I wouldn't even call it a protest. I believe.
You don't even know what happened? I mean, I just watched him explain what happened, right? I mean, like, we've been looking at it. What do you mean I don't know what happened? It's obvious what happened. They just said what happened.
That happens frequently down here. They were there in that area. We are looking and actively interviewing victims and witnesses to determine if that group was targeted or others, and we just don't have
Molotov
those
cocktails
yet.
are free speech, guys.
Be able to provide you later this evening.
FBI is already calling it a targeted terror attack.
Yeah.
Would you also refer to it as a terror attack?
So I've been in contact with our local FBI multiple times. We are in contact with them here. We are not calling it a terror attack at this point. Again, it's way too early to speculate motive. You know, I know there's a lot out there on social media, but I ask people just to give us a little bit of patience while we work through a really complex scene. A lot of witnesses were here. We've taken them to another location to debrief them and interview them. As we do that, I think the picture will become more clear. But it would be irresponsible for me to speculate on motive this early on. We're only a couple hours into this thing.
About the suspect, can you confirm the description about him? Because we know any picture running in social media.
I haven't seen it, and I wasn't here when he was arrested.
Yeah.
All I know is it's an adult male. We're working
Where
to
is this?
identify
It's in
that person.
Boulder,
We're working to figure
Colorado.
out where they're from, and we're in contact with our federal partners
Yes.
as well as we figure that out.
Was something thrown at the group?
That is being investigated as well. So our initial call, as I mentioned, was
Yeah, so this is the part that I had already seen. And so, yeah, it seems pretty obvious that that's what happened. Let me go back. It looks like this is frozen or
someone was
something.
setting people on fire.
We're here, bro. We're here. We can't do nothing about that. We can't do nothing. We can. Not here. You have to answer this. Not here, bro. You're not.
People are taking video right now.
Spraying alcohol.
Spraying alcohol, but what he did was he made it look like he was here.
He's making Molotov cocktails.
I mean, he just said Palestine. Listen. So, I mean, it's very obvious that this was a politically motivated action.
Well, we can't do it when he's got Molotov cocktails in there. If you are fighting, you have to. That's what he's got right here. Is Molotov cocktails.
Holy shit. Wow. And this is the guy's name. I don't know. This is the definition of terrorism. Yeah. Mohammed Solomon. Public execution should be brought back. Yeah, I'd be fine if we did that. Anyway, so this is pretty much what it is.
Jeff Keighley, he sent this out only round 1. So there's allegedly going to be even more that he announces potentially, but this is specifically 60 partners for Summer Games Fest. So this is like partners that are probably going to be showing stuff either during the pre-show or during the main show for Summer Games Fest. You see like the big ones, you know, you got Epic Games, you got 2K, and this makes sense because like 2K, they've got Mafia coming out, Borderlands, that makes sense that they're going to be there. Amazon Games, they just have more money than God to spend on stuff, so they're going to be there. CDPR, I know people are getting excited about this. People are like, oh, they're going to showcase The Witcher 4 or something. I don't think so. I think that they are going there to have like a trailer for Cyberpunk on the Switch 2. I think that really is all it's going to be. Okay, realistically, let's be honest. As for others, Moonfish, NeoWiz, they also have a DLC expansion coming to Lies of P, so that makes sense. Nexon, Techland, yeah, they're relaunching some stuff. Supermassive Games, they have Little Nightmares 3 coming. Coffee Stain, Devolver Digital, let's see, Bandai Namco, probably with Night Rain stuff. Maybe not actually, maybe not Night Rain. So I don't know. IOI, that might be for Mind's Eye and some other stuff that they have. Sega is going to be there. Razer, you know, a decent number. There's no names here that really like shock me or blow me away. Square Enix is going to be there. That could be interesting. It would be funny if he did the same thing he did. Was it the Game Awards or was it Summer Games Fest? Do you remember when he was like, the rumors were true? And everyone's like, oh my God, it's Bloodborne or it's something crazy like that. And it just ended up being Final Fantasy Rebirth or whatever. I was like, oh, like cool. Glad to see it, but okay. One that does get me excited, Pearl Abyss. Pearl Abyss. You know what they're doing? They're the ones behind Crimson Desert. So if they're going to be there, maybe a new trailer, maybe an official launch date reveal. You never know. That could be cool. That could be cool. Playside, of course, like the other one that could be big, could be not big. PlayStation, of course, is listed here. PlayStation could be coming just to do like a trailer for the $50 discount coupon on the PlayStation 5 Pro. Like they could be coming to do something as kind of underwhelming as basically a commercial. Or they could be coming because they're going to be like, yeah, a new story trailer for Ghost of Yotei. I mean, it's possible. You never know. But this could be big or it could be like absolutely nothing. Same with the Xbox being there. It could be that they're putting the logo there because they're going to have a trailer for discounted controllers. Or it could mean that they're going to show Fable gameplay in addition to, you know, some of the other stuff that they've done. So who knows? Who knows? That's the tricky thing with this, is that you just don't know what you don't know. It could be they're going to showcase something insane, or it could be that they're basically going to show a commercial. We just don't know. Embark, of course, Embark did the finals, but more pertinent to recent conversations, Embark are the guys behind Arc Raiders, the main competitor to Marathon. And there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors that Embark is actually going to be shadow dropping Arc Raiders during like the show. So they're going to announce it, like show a trailer for Arc Raiders and be like, yep, available now, which would be crazy. Can you imagine? I mean, I think that'd be a cool mic drop moment if they end up actually doing it. It'd be really, really cool. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. You can get tickets as well to the actual show. That's kind of cool. Whereas Ubisoft, yeah, that is interesting. They are not shown in this, at least. Now, it's possible they are in round 2. It's possible that there's some surprises, you know, because one of the things that's also been confirmed is that Hideo Kojima will be at Summer Games Fest, and he, or his company, is not listed here that I'm seeing. So he's one of them that's going to be here, and he's not on the page. So he could be in the second round, and maybe Ubisoft is too if they have something big to reveal. Personally, I would be surprised if Ubisoft is there at all, if they show anything. It doesn't seem like they're doing Ubisoft Forward at all. It doesn't seem like they have much to show. And as I've said to you guys 1,000 times, I think the best thing for them to do is to shadow drop Black Flag remake in like November or something. Shadow drop it out of nowhere, get people excited, get them to buy it that way, do it that way. I think that's the best way to do it. They could do a big marketing cycle, and the preview events are cool to be able to make videos before it comes out, but I'm telling them if they want the best outcome, shadow drop it. Shadow drop it. Shadow drop it tomorrow. Shadow drop it in 3 months. I don't care. Do something crazy.
And there are as many gods out there as there are believers.
You're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
Don't be a smartass.
Either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
You're really quite something, you are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing. Right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him. Hello there. I'm Dr. Jordan Peterson. I'm a clinical psychologist, a professor emeritus at the University of Toronto, an author, a podcaster, public speaker, and today I'm surrounded by 25 atheists. My first claim, atheists reject God, but they don't understand what they're rejecting.
Good afternoon, Dr. Peterson.
How you doing?
So this claim here that atheists don't know what they're rejecting. My background is in studying to become a traditional Catholic priest, daily mass, daily rosary, going on long retreats, deep into the magisterium and biblical hermeneutics, like I was thoroughly in it. And it seems like I do know what I'm missing. Is there something that I missed over years of study, both this issue formally and living out religion so deeply?
Well, you obviously feel that you missed something when you were practicing for the priesthood. Your aim was off then. So there's always the possibility that it's still off now.
What was off about my aim in the first place?
I don't know. That might take a long time to figure out.
But then it seems kind of like this no true Scotsman type of fallacy in which you're the arbiter of people's aims and how they understand those aims to be. How is it that you can claim that people don't know something that you know about their life despite not having met them?
Well, it's obviously a generic claim, just like the atheist claim that there's no God is a generic claim. In your case, it would have to be specified more, and I'm not claiming to understand what was going on in your mind, but my experience with atheists is twofold, is that they have a very reductive notion of what constitutes God, let's say in the Judeo-Christian tradition, and they've often been hurt by someone who was religious or by the religious enterprise or perhaps by God himself, so to speak, and that's left them with an animus.
But I think that you have a reductive view of what atheism is. You've defined religion so broadly to include any sort of having aim in life, any sort of cultural archetypes or having a metaphorical substrate. And atheism to you is a very specific type of like three people in the world that are these Raskolnikov type of, they want to get away with a perfect murder. It seems like you have the reductive view of what an atheist is.
Well, let's start with your claim. How do you define the God that you're rejecting? Like, what is God to you? You studied in the church, you found that unsatisfactory. How would you characterize what you rejected?
I think the average Christian believer, when they say that they're Christian and they believe, they mean some sort of God that is all-powerful, all-perfect, is somehow involved in the matters of this world, and that we look to them through wisdom and with the Logos incarnate in Christ. And it also seems like you don't believe in religion in the way that the average Christian says that they believe in religion. And there are as many gods out there as there are believers, because everybody has mutually exclusive and different views of what God is. So it seems
well,
like...
if everybody had mutually exclusive views of what God is, no one could speak to each other. The mere fact of communication presumes a commonality of assumption and definition. And it's certainly not the case that I regard any archetypal manifestation whatsoever as equally religious. So that's not a real claim. Let me give you an example. For example, there's a sub-narrative in the story of Moses where Moses is rewarded with a glimpse of God. Okay, and that's one of the ways that God is characterized in the Old Testament stories.
Yes.
Now, Moses is a faithful servant of God and a good man. At least that's the case within the confines of the story.
One possible interpretation.
It's the case within the confines of the story, obviously. What?
Well,
There's
not
a-
obviously.
There's
When we look at the Bible can't precisely say anything because there are so many different exegetical and hermeneutic views of this particular book, and that everybody has everybody has disagreed historically on, it seems like, even the most benign detail about a book this big. And it seems like you can only say that the Bible says something if you first presuppose that it's univocal.
So your claim essentially is that Moses in the Old Testament plays the role of a villain or is irrelevant? Because the alternative claim
I'm
is
saying that we
he's
can't
good.
know, because we can't talk to those authors.
If you are going to start with the presupposition that there's nothing I can say about any of these stories that you're not going to disagree with from the perspective that there are multiple potential competing claims, then I can't speak with you. So
And
you
we
have
also have a short time here, so I want to get to the core of what you're arguing here, and I'd love if we could
The
kind
core
get
of what
through
I'm
them.
arguing is that atheists reject God, but they don't understand what they're rejecting. So I'm trying to
Yes.
give you an example of what's being rejected and its complexity. Okay, so God rewards Moses with a glimpse of the divine. So this is a definition of the God that atheists are hypothetically rejecting.
A possible one.
I said
Yeah.
I didn't say the.
I know.
said a.
That is
Right.
possible, yes.
Okay. So despite the fact that Moses is a stellar character and he's had a long and difficult life and can withstand a lot of difficulty and travail, God puts him between two cliffs. So he can just see a crack of what's in front of him. And when God walks by, he allows him to see his back. Okay, so the implication of that story is that the divine is fundamentally unknowable. It's a pinnacle experience, and that people in their finitude have to be shielded from a comprehensive vision of the basis of reality. Well, that's not the God that's defined in that manner, right? It's not a simple personification. It's not a simple old man in the sky. It's something that in its essence is unknowable and overwhelming. And that isn't, in my experience, the God that's defined by atheists who are attempting to undermine the story. I mean, it's the same claim, for example, that you're a finite creature and that you face something that in the final analysis is unknowable, and that you have to establish a relationship with it regardless of your inability to perceive or even withstand perceiving the whole. Okay, is there a problem with that?
I mean, the problem is that when we look at, famously, when you've been asked, do you believe in God, the question becomes, what do we mean by God? And in the Bible, it's not even clear if the biblical authors know what God is, because Yahweh has historically emerged from an early storm god, a deity that doesn't exhaust the category of deity, and that has changed over the Old Testament. Does God have physicality? Does God not have physicality? It seems like, yes, if you define religion to mean anybody that has an aim, anybody that looks at the unknown, anybody who wants to go from chaos to order is inherently religious, then yes. But also in the same way, I could define atheist as somebody who doesn't dogmatically believe in a religion, or somebody who doesn't regularly attend religious services or belong to a denomination. To help especially the audience kind of like boil this down, there was a lot of words there. That the central claim is that we exist somewhere between the finite and the infinite.
A central claim.
A central claim is that we exist somewhere between the finite and the infinite.
No,
Is that?
I said that we were finite and we had to establish a relationship with the infinite.
Yeah, then in that case, then we're all religious, but then I can do the same thing and define one particular element of atheism. It seems like we both have a reductive view of what the other side looks like, to the point where a conversation seems incoherent, and not just incoherent, but not in the way that the average Christian understands Christianity to be.
Do you have a
Okay,
problem
let's
with...
pause there. Sorry, you've been voted out by
Awesome.
the majority.
Hey, how's it going?
How
Nice to meet you.
doing? Nice to meet you, too.
David.
David, good to see you.
Tell me everything that you know about the Polynesian deity Lono, L-O-N-O.
I don't know anything about the Polynesian deity Lono.
So you're rejecting something without knowledge of what you're rejecting.
I'm not rejecting it.
Do
No
you
more
be-
than I'm
do
rejecting
you believe in
anything
Lono?
that I don't know anything
Do you
about.
believe in Lono?
I
Do you
fail to
believe
see
that
the
he is a
relevance of
deity that exists in the world, exists in the universe, that exists in the existence of everything? Do you believe that Lono
I'll
is
answer
a
that
being?
question once you answer my question, which is, do I reject everything that I'm ignorant of? Because that's your presupposition that undergirds your argument, and unless you can prove that that's valid, then there's no point.
My question is quite simple.
Yeah, but that doesn't
Do
mean
you
it's
believe-
formulated accurately.
Do you believe that Lono exists? Yes or no?
I'm not going to answer that question for the reasons I just described. You already insisted that if I reject something, that if I'm ignorant of something, I reject it. Do you think that everyone in the world has to know everything simultaneously for that to be valid and true?
I think in order for your argument to be true, in order for it to be true that we atheists don't understand what we're rejecting, then you need to also apply that to yourself and to Christians and to Muslims and to any other person on this earth, where if you don't understand what you're rejecting the belief in, then you can't reject the belief in it. That's the implication of your claim.
I didn't say that I rejected the belief in Lona. I said I didn't know who Lona was. I didn't say anything about rejecting.
That's because I've asked you several times and you haven't, but let me get to my even greater point. You're saying atheists don't understand what religion is or what God is in order to be able to reject it fully or completely. We have someone over here who studied it in their own way. I've studied religion. I have a degree in religious studies, specialty in Christianity and Mediterranean traditions. And further than that, beyond me, Pew Research studies suggest that atheists and agnostics actually know more about religion and about religious stories, the foundational principles, than believers.
That's because they're more religious than they think they are.
Okay. You can...
They're concerned with deep matters, and one of the defining characteristics of someone who's oriented in a religious direction is that they're concerned with deep matters.
Okay.
In fact, it's virtually definitional.
Right, but they also have to identify with a religious tradition and accept the foundational stories that go along with that.
Well, that would mean more that they're sectarian than that they're religious. And most people, for example, in the United States, deny that they're religious, but accept that they're spiritual.
Let's pause there. You've been voted out by the majority.
Aha! Hi, nice to meet you.
How are you doing?
Good, how
What's
are you?
your name?
I'm Greg, nice to meet you.
Greg.
Okay, so I feel like you're getting at this idea of polysemy, where we have multiple related meanings for a word, right? Like, for example, a famous painting can be emotionally moving in that it changes my emotional state. And when I was on the highway coming here to the studio, I was physically moving. I was changing my position. If I said, I believe the Mona Lisa is very moving, and you said, you don't really understand what you're saying, it's nailed to the wall, I would say that you're the one who doesn't understand what I'm saying, not the other way around. And the way that relates to this is there are many concepts of God, and I'll admit, I find a lot of what you say about that interesting. I'm familiar with it. The idea of this kind of Jungian hierarchical thing, or as a metaphor, or a symbol, or the kind of, atheist, materialist, literalist idea of a agentic, omnipotent, omniscient being that intervenes in reality, right? So when I'm saying that I reject the concept of God, I'm aware of these other definitions of God, but I think that when we use words, we tend to only imply one meaning at a time. So the same way that I would say the Mona Lisa is moving emotionally, but I would not say it's moving physically. I would say I reject the concept of God in this very literal way. But
what literal way?
The way that God is this omniscient, omnipotent, agentic, supernatural being that sent his son down and has, caused miracles and all these things like that. The idea of God is
Do you think that there's an underlying unity of things?
Could you explain that question?
Well, scientists, for example, believe that science unifies in a comprehensive theory. Do you? Yes? No? Or that there are multiple competing truths? Those are the options. Either things unify or there are multiple competing truths.
I know that, for example, like in physics, people are looking for like a theory of everything.
And why do you think they're doing that?
It's interesting, it's helpful.
But they also believe that there's an underlying unity to things.
In a sense, yeah, like the material world and time and space are probably governed by universal laws and principles?
Partly that, yes, yes, but that the same thing might extend to a broader domain that would include imagination and value.
Could you help me connect that to the prompt?
Well, I'm trying to define God, the God that I don't think atheists do a very good job of defining. Here's another question for you. What do you think guides you in your determination of whether or not what you're saying to me is true?
Can we go back? Can we stay on what we were talking about?
We are.
Okay.
You're just uncomfortable with the question.
No, I feel like you're just kind of throwing different spaghetti at the wall.
I'm not.
Okay.
I asked
All
you a
right.
very specific question. What is it that you think guides you when you're talking to me to help you determine whether what you say is true?
Logic, memory, reasoning, sensory information.
How do you distinguish that from being governed by something that's false?
An interesting question.
How do you know the difference when you speak between what's true and what's false? So you could imagine
I infer, right? I can infer. I can.
From what principles?
So, and what are you getting at?
I'm getting at the fact that your conscience guides you. Is that reasonable?
Conscious is defined by my empathy and my reason are my foundational.
Define it any way you want.
Okay, so that's how I'm defining my conscience. Is my my conscience is my sense of
right
and wrong. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Where does that come from?
I would say that comes from an evolved capacity to empathize and a recognition of the benefits of engaging with and nurturing that capacity. And then that empathy is constrained and guided by reason, right? Like, for example, I am driving down the highway, there's a kitten in the road. I'm gonna empathetically feel, oh my God, I wanna save the kitten, but then reasonably, like, I'm gonna get hit by a car, right? So that's sort of the process through which I make ethical decisions.
Okay,
how empathy constrained by reason.
Do you think that people can differ in their response to something empathically?
Yeah.
Is there a mediating principle that can tell you one person who's empathic and another person who's empathic that disagree, who's correct?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we'd have to, talk it out, right? We do that in real life all the time when we have, whether that's a discussion with a friend about the right thing to do in a situation, whether that's a policy discussion about law, right? That's where we can converse with each other, think about things, explain our perspectives, and then kind of reach a conclusion, right? I think that we do that all the time.
So Elijah, the prophet Elijah, defined God in the Old Testament as the voice of conscience within.
Okay.
That's a definition.
So you're saying by that definition of God, I see this kind of goes back to where I'm saying initially.
I'm not defining it. Elijah defined it.
Okay, so as Elijah defines God.
It's defined that way in Jonah too.
Okay, so as
Cardinal Newman also defined it that way.
As I'm sure you know many people who've defined it that way. And it's impressive. You're a very knowledgeable person.
I'm not trying to be impressive. I'm just pointing out to you how God is defined in the Old Testament.
All right. So to respond to that, I do think there are lots of interesting ways to define God. And that goes back to my kind of opening
Then how
statement.
do we specify what we're arguing about?
We use context clues, or again, it goes back to my example of the Mona Lisa.
I'm defining God as conscience.
Okay. So that's interesting, but then you're kind of expanding the meaning of God.
No, I'm not. That's how it's defined in the Old Testament.
Okay,
in Elijah and in Jonah.
Sure. So whoever,
it's not whoever.
Okay.
Elijah is one of the major Old Testament prophets. Right? He's equal in stature to Moses.
Okay.
Right. So it's not arbitrary.
All right. So that is interesting, but it's not relevant to the context with which I am using the term God.
It's directly relevant. Atheists reject God, but they don't understand what they're rejecting. You accept conscience as a guide, and conscience is one of the defining characteristics of God in the Old Testament.
I think you're being intellectually disingenuous.
In what way?
Because, again,
I asked you if you believe that conscience guided you.
You just asked me a question, and then you stopped me from answering it. In this setting, you understand the way I am using the term God and belief.
Not in the least. I don't understand how you're using it in the least. That's why I'm trying to define it. My definition of God as conscience is a lot more precise and oriented than your definition of the God that you hypothetically disbelieve in.
It's irrelevant to the fault lines of this debate.
How is it irrelevant?
Because in common parlance, when we're talking about atheists, God, belief, not belief,
I don't care about common parlance. I'm trying to get to something fundamental.
I think your point is irrelevant to the way that people tend to use these words. Your point that there are these polysemous
I didn't make
ideas
that
of God.
point. You did.
I
made a specific point that God was associated with conscience.
I just feel like you kind of retreat into this semantic fog.
I'm not retreating at all. I'm advancing, sir. You are retreating.
Okay. All right. Well, it was very nice to meet you.
Nice
I appreciate
to meet
the
you
conversation.
Too. Yeah. It's very brave of you to do this.
Thank you.
Surrounded is now a podcast, available wherever you listen.
and welcome, history buffs. My name is Nick Hodges, and in this very special episode, to celebrate reaching over 250,000 subscribers, we'll be leaving the confines of our planet and venturing far out into space on board Apollo 13. It's April 1970. Less than a year has passed since Neil Armstrong became the first man to set foot on the moon on Apollo 11. Since then, Apollo 12 made an equally successful landing, and NASA has now launched Apollo 13, also intended to land on the moon. But 56 hours later, and over 200,000 miles from Earth, an unforeseen accident occurs that jeopardizes the lives of the entire crew. This film is based on the true story of what those astronauts went through, and the collaborative effort of Mission Control to bring them back home alive. And over the course of this review, I'll be discussing in great length the history of the space race, I'll be covering Apollo 13's mission, and finally discuss how faithful was the film to what actually happened. This is Apollo 13. Isn't it super awesome that we now live in a time where we can look back on our own history and know that we have traveled into space? Not only that, but we have walked on the surface of the moon, the very celestial body that every single human being that has ever lived has gazed upon. It truly does capture the imagination. And not that long ago, such an idea only existed in the realm of science fiction. In 1865, Jules Verne published the book From the Earth to the Moon and got remarkably close to how it actually happened just over a century later with the Apollo 8 mission in 1968. For example, he decided that out of all the nations on Earth, that America would be the one to do it. And through his calculations, he predicted that the launch site would be in southern Florida. He predicted that it would be in the month of December, that it would take 3 days to travel to the moon, and that the capsule would return to Earth by being recovered at sea. The only big thing he got wrong was that in real life, a rocket was used, whilst the Americans in his book used a giant cannon. But even so, it's pretty amazing on how much he was able to get right. So the question stands, how did the romantic idea of traveling to the moon make the transition from science fiction to science fact? Well, the roots of mankind's greatest journey can be found at the end of World War II. It's September 1944, and Hitler is desperate to find a solution in winning the war. That was when he unleashed a new secret weapon, the V-2 rocket, the world's first ballistic missile. Packed with explosives, the V-2s were launched against Allied cities such as Paris, Antwerp, and London. Although a terrifying weapon, it's important to note that this was the first man-made object to cross the boundary of space before falling back to Earth and hitting its target. And this was certainly not lost on the German rocket scientist who developed it. His name was Wernher von Braun. His life's work had always been in the pursuit of space travel, and with his rocket technology, he was convinced that it was the key to reaching the heavens. In fact, you could say he was pretty much obsessed with it, and all other potential moral ambiguities were considered secondary. For example, later in life when he was questioned about his V-2 rockets, he's quoted as saying, "The rocket worked perfectly, except for landing on the wrong planet." So when he joined the Nazi Party in 1937, he saw it as a career move, one that would get him all the funding he would ever need to realize his dream. In the final days of the war, the Allies and the Soviets were pushing further and further into Germany. Secretly, both sides were searching for von Braun, as they could see the terrible potential his weapons had, particularly the Americans, as they were already developing their own super weapon at the time. If von Braun's rocket technology could be combined with the atomic bomb, it would be the most destructive weapon in history. Neither the Americans nor the Soviets knew it yet, but they had just taken the first steps in what eventually became the space race. Now, von Braun was perfectly aware that the Third Reich's days were numbered, and if he wished to continue pursuing his dream of space travel, it would have to be elsewhere, especially since he knew that the Nazi officers who were protecting him and his team were under orders to shoot him if it looked like he was going to fall in enemy hands. So obviously, he had to escape and weighed his options on who to surrender to. The Soviets were the less desirable choice since it was well known how they treated their prisoners. Only real option was to surrender to the Americans, and after his escape, that's exactly what he did. In exchange for his full cooperation and knowledge of the V-2 rocket program, von Braun would be given full immunity and was whisked away to the United States. With von Braun out of their reach, the Soviets now had to play catch-up by scavenging abandoned V-2 rocket factories and finding other German rocket engineers who had been left behind in East Germany. They would also recruit one man to take von Braun's position as chief designer in their rocket program, and that man was Sergei Korolev. Now, he had been falsely imprisoned during the Great Purge under acts of sabotage in the Soviets' Rocket Research Institute and was sentenced to 10 years in one of Stalin's gulags. In 1945, he was released after serving 6 years of his 10-year sentence by recommendation from one of the very men who had denounced him in the first place, his old colleague, Valentin Glushko. Now, I'm sure Glushko felt incredibly awkward about the whole situation, but he was smart enough to know that Sergei Korolev was the man for the job. Not only was he an innovator, a genius, but for all intents and purposes, he would become von Braun's rival and ultimately his equal, especially since they both shared the same dream of space travel. On August 6, 1945, the world was stunned when America dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. This only served to strengthen Soviet resolve because not only did the Americans possess the A-bomb now, but von Braun and his rockets. Just a month before this, however, a Soviet spy called Klaus Fuchs, who had been working on the Manhattan Project, stole classified blueprints of the atom bomb and sent them to Moscow on the 2nd of July, 1945. Once the Soviets witnessed the atomic bomb's true destructive power in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Stalin immediately ordered that their own bombs be built, as well as continue developing their rocket technology. The Soviets were under the natural assumption that the next logical step for America would be to build missiles fitted with their atomic weapons. But surprisingly, that wasn't the case. Von Braun and his team weren't continuing their research. The Americans were quite happy to let their department collect dust, preferring to instead entrust future delivery of the bombs be made by planes, just like they had done in Japan. That was until they got their wake-up call. On the 29th of August 1949, the first Soviet atomic bomb was detonated on a test site in Semipalatinsk, Kazakhstan. This time the West was horrified, especially with how quickly the Soviet Union was able to do it. And just a month later, on the 25th of September 1949, the Soviets had successfully launched an improved version of the V-2 rocket, which they dubbed the R-2. It had twice the range of the V-2 and was capable of hitting England. 1949 was significant because it marked the beginning of the nuclear arms race between America and the Soviet Union, each side working furiously to develop nuclear weapons capable of destroying each other. And much of the time they spent doing so was very neck and neck. On November 1st, 1952, the Americans tested the world's first hydrogen bomb in the Pacific Ocean. On the 12th of August 1953, the Russians developed an H-bomb of their own and tested it in Kazakhstan. Now, some of you may be asking, what does all this have to do with space travel? Well, the development of the rocket technology necessary for space travel could only have been achieved with military funding. So when Sergei Korolev was asked if he could build a new rocket that could transport a thermonuclear warhead to America, he said yes he could, because he knew that same rocket could also reach space and also transport and launch a satellite in Earth's orbit. The funding he got from the Soviet Union was exactly what he needed to make that happen. In America, however, von Braun was having a much harder time selling the idea to the US Army and was hardly getting any funding at all for his rockets. So what he decides to do instead, and I find this very funny by the way, is to go over the Army's head and instead sell the idea of spaceflight and traveling to the moon directly to the American people. How does he do this? Well, through Walt Disney, of course.
Here to reveal a plan for a trip around the moon is the Chief of the Guided Missile Development at the United States Army's Redstone Arsenal, Dr. Werner von Braun.
A voyage around the moon must be made in 2 phases. A rocket ship taking off from the Earth's surface will use almost all the fuel it can carry just to attain a speed great enough to balance the pull of gravity. Unpowered, it will then keep circling the Earth in an orbit outside of the atmosphere. This is the first phase. However, if we can refuel the ship in this orbit with fuel brought up by cargo rocket ships, it can set out on the second phase, the trip around the moon and back.
This televised primetime event made Dr. Werner von Braun a household name as 40 million Americans were glued to their screens. Von Braun's plan absolutely worked as things began to get moving in Washington that would later help him get the funding he needed for his rockets.
The President today approved plans by this country of going forward for the launching of a small, unmanned, Earth-circling satellite in the region beyond the Earth's atmosphere.
What did we learn today, guys? When someone tells you not to follow your dreams, don't just accept it. It might very well happen if you keep at it. So anyway, back in the Soviet Union, Sergei Korolev was also watching how things were developing in America. Anxious to get his own satellite into orbit first, he worked furiously on his R-7 rocket. Nikita Khrushchev, the leader of the Soviet Union, told Korolev that if the R-7 worked, then he would be allowed to fit the next launch with a satellite. After several failures, the R-7 was finally able to launch successfully on August 21st, 1957, and traveled 3,700 miles, going further than any rocket before and capable of hitting America. Sergei Korolev could now proceed with his satellite, which they called Sputnik. Now, the satellite itself was very simple in design. It was just a relatively small ball, about 22.5 inches in diameter, with 4 long radio antennae. It was stripped down to only the bare essentials in order to make it light enough to be carried by the R-7. All it needed to do was to transmit a radio signal, proving to the world of its success. On the 4th of October, 1957, the Soviets launched Sputnik 1, the first man-made satellite into orbit. And the world took notice.
Today, a new moon is in the sky, a 23-inch metal sphere placed in orbit by a Russian rocket. Here, an artist's conception of how the feat was accomplished. A 3-stage rocket. Number 1, the booster, in the class of an intercontinental missile. Its weight estimated at 50 tons. The smaller second stage took over at 5,000 miles an hour and carried on to the highest point reached. 500 miles up, the artificial moon is boosted to a speed counterbalancing the pull of gravity and released. You are hearing the actual signals transmitted by the Earth-circling satellite. One of the great scientific feats of the age.
This was it. This was the moment that officially started the space race. It was the kick up the proverbial backside America needed to get them in the game. Its public was awash with different emotions. Some of them were excited with this scientific breakthrough, while others were even frightened.
Gets the American people alarmed that a foreign country, especially an enemy country, can do this, and we fear this.
But more than fear, more than excitement, the biggest thing Sputnik did was sting America's pride, and they couldn't let that slide.